This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, please send it to me. Box 13 at greatdetectives.net. Remember, cast your vote for the show every month on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net, and become one of our friends over on Twitter at Radio Detectives. Well, before we do get started, I do want to encourage you to check out our book, Tales of the Dim Night. It's a fun and fascinating, friendly family story. Nice alliteration there, huh? With some great homage to superheroes of the golden era, and just a very fun comedy. You can learn more about it at dimnight.com, and it is available in paperback as well as in ebook form. And more information is available at dimnight.com. Well, we're going to get into today's episode of the Abbotts, The Fabulous Emerald Necklace.
After all, if a girl wears a dazzling necklace worth a fortune, should it make a man want to kiss her or kill her?
The National Broadcasting Company presents The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as Pat and Jean Abbott, those popular characters of detective fiction created by Francis Crane. NBC invites you to join Pat and Jean each week at this time for an exciting adventure in romance and crime. In our story tonight will be Miss Sherry Britton making her dramatic debut in radio. Now here is Claudia Morgan as Jean Abbott to set the stage for tonight's puzzle in murder. A story entitled The Fabulous Emerald Necklace.
The necklace was a breathtaking collection of precious stones. It belonged to Mrs. Dexter Blake, a curious young woman without any social background who'd somehow managed to marry the heir to the Blake fortune. Late one night, she and her husband had left the Stardust Club and were strolling to their Park Avenue townhouse, which was just around the corner from the club.
Really, Kathy, I don't think you behaved very well at the club.
Oh, will you stop picking on me, Dexter? Don't be so prissy. You've been doing it all evening. I just had a little fun at the club. After all, how square can you get? Really, sometimes I...
Now, look, I've had more than enough trouble because of you.
The snobbery deal again?
Now, it isn't snobbery, Kathy. It's just that I do have a rather well-known family. We're sensitive to publicity. The columnists were very cruel when you married me, and every time you misbehave publicly, you're just proving their point.
You believe their point, too, don't you? I mean that there's something very wrong about your having married a divorcee, especially one whose family wasn't descended from the original settlers, Pilgrims or whatever it was.
Oh, let's drop it.
It's come up too often. Now, let's settle it. You'd like to get out of our marriage, wouldn't you?
Well, No, darling, I've never said that, never thought it.
Don't try thinking of it, Dexter. You'd never make it. If you don't like bad publicity, just imagine what I'd do if you ever threatened to get rid of me. I'd give
Shut
those...
up, Mrs. Blake, and back into that doorway.
What? Who are you?
What's the idea? Get away from her.
I said for you two to get off the straight end of that doorway. I've got a .38 here, and I'll empty it into both of you.
Why, of all the...
Go on. Into the doorway. That's it. Now I'll take that necklace of yours, Mrs. Blake.
Cheap hoodlum. You think you can get away with this just because you're waving that gun? Why, I...
That's it, Mrs. Blake. I'll take the necklace. Thank you.
You give me that necklace?
Take your hands off me.
Police! Police!
I told you not to do that. I told you.
Come back here, you! Oh, Dexter. Dexter, he's dead. He's dead.
The jewel thief disappeared into the night, leaving Mrs. Dexter Blake hysterical beside the dead body of her husband. Pat and I had been home that night. All we knew about Kathy Blake was what we'd read in the gossip columns. But the next morning, Pat had been invited to the Sterling Insurance Company. He was in the office of a company executive, Frank Tracy.
I sent for you, Mr. Abbott, because this case calls for a man of your caliber. We'd be glad to pay any reasonable fee, of course.
Is this a reasonable case, Mr. Tracy?
Well, frankly, it's rather difficult. That's why I'd rather you handle this case than any one of our routine investigators. Our company insured Mrs. Blake's necklace, Mr. Abbott.
Mm-hmm. For how much?
$200,000.
Can Mrs. Blake describe the man who attacked him?
Well, she's quite vague about it, but something very fascinating came to me in the mail this morning.
No? What is it?
A note from the killer.
May I see it? Mm-hmm.
You'll notice, of course, that it's been written very much like a ransom note in a kidnapping. No use of pens, pencils, or typewriter. The letters look as though they've been cut out of newspapers and pasted together.
Yes, they do.
He makes what he believes is a business offer. As you see, he wants $50,000. For that sum, he'll leave the necklace where our company can find it. We return it to Mrs. Blake and save $150,000.
Yes, very wise, too. The thief knows he'd have a difficult time disposing of the pieces through a fence. It's identified too easily.
Exactly.
I see he doesn't mention how he proposes to have you give him the cash. I suppose he'll get in touch with you later.
Exactly. Now, couldn't we trap him by promising to pay off at a certain place and at a certain time?
I doubt it. Nobody would try a swindle like this without planning it very carefully.
Well, then what do we do?
I'd like to talk to the dead man's wife.
All right. I'll arrange for you to meet Mrs. Blake. Oh, and you'd better have your guard up. She's very beautiful. And very clever. I think of her as a kind of Lucrezia Borgia.
Oh, really?
Yes, especially for one reason.
And what's that?
Lucrezia murdered her husband.
I was gallivanting around San Francisco buying play suits for the summer. A very innocent cherub indeed. And that husband of mine was closeted in a private office with Mrs. Dexter Blake.
Mrs. Blake, you say you hardly saw this man who shot your husband?
Well, it was very dark, Mr. Abbott. He pushed us away from the lamppost into the doorway. I could just see his shadow.
How tall was the shadow?
Average height. It's very difficult for me to be accurate. I was terribly excited. I didn't notice details.
Well, if you couldn't see very well, you could hear. How about his voice?
Rather odd, come to think of it. He didn't sound like the usual gangster. Seemed rather cultured.
Mm-hmm. That all the information you can give me?
I'm afraid so. Sorry I'm not being very helpful.
Well, unfortunately, Mrs. Blake, these cases often lead to our having to ask embarrassing questions, probing into the darker corners of people's lives.
Go right ahead.
Are you getting along well with your husband?
Oh, I suppose so. How well do people get along after they've been married quite a while?
I'm not a philosopher, Mrs. Blake, just a detective. Did you have reason to believe your husband was, mixed up in any activity he'd rather you didn't know about?
Is that your diplomatic way of saying, was there another woman? I don't think so. I don't follow you, Mr. Abbott. I wear a necklace, a very expensive one. Some thief holds us up, becomes excited, shoots my husband. And you're making a whole French novel out of it.
Yes, because Mrs. Blake, very often what looks like a simple hold-up or assault or what have you is actually more complicated than it appears. It's often a cover-up for something more deeply motivated.
I am not a woman of very deep motivations. My interests and desires are normal and obvious. As for my late husband...
Yes?
Dexter was not a man of many dimensions either.
Just folks, huh? With a few $1 million.
You're a detective, Mr. Abbott, not a humorist.
Who collects on your husband's life insurance?
I do.
All of it?
All of it.
How much is that?
Oh, about $500,000.
Do you also inherit all his property?
Mm-hmm. It's worth another $1.5 million.
Well, we were speaking of motives a while ago. You'll need an awfully good attorney to get you out of this.
Why? I'm perfectly innocent.
But I have an intuitive feeling about you, Mrs. Blake. Nothing too definite to support it. I think you didn't care very much for Dexter, but you had quite a passion for his checkbook.
What of it?
Well, for instance, you find yourself a mug. You make a deal with him. He holds you up, gets your $200,000 necklace as payment, and takes a pot shot at Dexter. You're the helpless wife. Dexter's a very dead pigeon. You come into Dexter's money, the mug disappears with his $200,000. Very nice.
I could have had anything I wanted from Dexter. Do you think I'd trade in a comfortable spot like that for the electric chair?
Maybe. Lots of people try it.
You're wasting your time, Mr. Abbott.
Oh, really?
Oh, not that I mind. Being questioned by a very handsome detective is so pleasant.
You've changed the subject.
Certainly. You're much more interesting. Married, Mr. Abbott?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. That makes it more fun.
Well, haven't you had enough entertainment these past few days?
Not of the right kind. You wrote my phone number in your notebook. Will you call me?
What for?
Why, you amaze me, Mr. Abbott. Some men have to be told everything.
That night at home, Pat told me about the case. Only because he had to, as I found out soon enough.
How dare you know my policy about keeping you out of my cases?
Yes, teacher.
Now, for once in your life, you're going to come in very handy.
Oh, now you're getting sensible. You have such a brilliant wife, I never could see why you didn't use her talent.
Yes, well, look, brilliant wife. There's a way to get at this guy who likes emeralds and target practice with millionaires.
Well, how do you do it?
With a decoy duck.
That me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do I do?
We buy you a necklace.
Oh, this gets better all the time.
We buy you a cheap necklace.
You and Jack Benny, huh?
We get our friend Nick Scudder to put a line in this column about the gal who's always at the Stardust Club wearing a sensational necklace. That ought to start our boyfriend, who likes sparklers, chasing around after you. Now, he'd try to pick you up at the club.
But I'm hard to get, huh?
No, easy, very easy.
This wouldn't be typecasting, would it?
Now, to get the jewels you'll be wearing, he'll have to get you alone. So he'll probably ask you to his place. You'll both go outside and get a cab.
Pat Abbott, do you mean to say you're actually suggesting that I go to a nightclub, make a pitch at a killer, and then take a taxi ride alone with him?
Well, it'll be a special kind of cab.
What's special about it?
I'll be driving it.
Sounds like quite a Halloween party.
Well, it might not turn out to be so jolly, dear. It's what I don't like about my little scheme. You see, somebody in this deal might
what?
Might decide that your throat is a good place to put old razor blades.
We bought a flashy-looking necklace. Nick Scudder plugged away in his column about, quote, the mysterious gal seen every night at the Stardust Club with a rock-studded horse collar that could pay the national debt, unquote. Outside the club a few nights later, Pat was at the wheel of a taxi. I was inside the club, sitting alone at the bar. A very oily-looking Joe came over to me, smiled, and... Well, I knew this was our man. I fluttered my eyelids in the best Hollywood manner, and we were off to the races.
Don't tell me you're one of those awful people who like to drink alone.
No. I'm just new in town, and I haven't made friends yet.
Now, you've made one now. My name's Al Francis.
Oh, mine's Jean.
Mind if I join you for a drink?
Not at all. Do you always play the big bad wolf with all the Red Riding Hoods who come here?
Just the beautiful ones. They fascinate me for more reasons than one.
Oh, what do you mean?
I'm, psychic about them. I'll take you, for instance. I'll make a guess. I'd say you were married to a very wealthy man, much older than you are. You're sick of him. You're bored. You've come here for some excitement.
Go on.
That much was a guess. Now I'll tell you something I'm very sure of. You're looking for excitement, lovely. You're shopping at the right counter.
I wasn't quite sure if Al Francis was just being amorous or if he suspected I was a plant and might suddenly give me the same treatment he'd given Dexter Blake. We stayed at the Stardust Club for about an hour. Francis hardly even eyed my necklace. He became more romantic and suggested we go to his apartment. We stepped outside to hail a cab. A cab I knew would be driven by Pat.
Hey, taxi.
Oh, here comes one, Al.
Oh, great. Go ahead, Gene. Step in.
Where to, Doc?
1785, Bayside.
Right.
Nice to be alone for a while, huh, Gene? Just the two of us?
Mm-hmm.
Gene, every minute I was in the club, I wanted to kiss you.
Oh, Al, the driver can see it.
Why does he care? Come here. Oh, Gene.
Did you say 1785 Bayside?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Look at those stars up there, Gene. See? Through the window. We mustn't let them go to waste. Just one kiss. Come close to me. Closer.
Oh.
Hey, Doc! I don't think there is any 1785 Bayside.
I have reason to think there is, driver. You see, I've been living there for 9 years.
Oh, okay.
Gene, honey, I never thought I'd be lucky enough to meet anyone like you. I always used to say to myself, deep in my heart, Al, I said...
Hey, you think the Yankees got a chance this year?
Look, friend, just drive the car.
Okay, Doc.
When you walked into the Stardust Club, Gene, I thought for a while that someone might be with you. Then I realized you were alone. Took a lot of courage to go over to you. I don't know what I'd done if you turned me down. We're together now.
That'll be 45 cents. Thanks.
Come on, Gene.
Al, I've sort of a headache.
I've got just the thing for it. Come on.
No, really, I think I'd better keep the cab and go home. I'm so tired.
You'll feel better when we get upstairs. I have some turkey on ice and a bottle of Riesling.
Yes, but thanks. But
Don't disappoint me. Just for a few minutes. We can...
Go on, Bud. You heard the lady. She wants to go home.
Who asked you to get into this?
I invited myself.
You know, I met some fresh cab drivers in my day, but you...
Look, the lady has a headache. But she's going home now.
Oh, you're going to get real cute about this, aren't you?
Good night, pal.
I'd love to knock your teeth down your throat.
Al, don't start a fight with him, please.
Come on, Bud. Let's play rough. I don't like your face. I think I could fix it up a little.
Well,
Al, please. No one must know you and I are...
All right, Gene, all right. I'll call you tomorrow. What's your number?
Just meet me at the club. Same time as tonight.
Fine. Bye, Gene.
Bye. You're the most wonderful cab driver I've ever had, Pat.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. Where to now?
Just drive along the bay.
But we don't live out this way.
Yes, I know. But didn't you hear what the man said? We mustn't let those stars go to waste.
Well, the fellow I borrowed the cab from is waiting.
It's all right. Cab drivers understand things like that. morning, Pat was just leaving his office. He was on his way to see Frank Tracy.
Come in.
Good morning, Mr. Abbott.
Well, Mrs. Blake.
Do you have a moment?
I certainly...
I've been wondering about what sort of progress you've been making. Have you found any clues to the identity of the man who killed my husband?
Oh, I don't talk about my cases until they're cleared up.
Oh, I think I have a right to know what you're doing. After all, I was married to Dexter.
Frightened, Mrs. Blake?
Why should I be?
Afraid that what comes out in the wash won't be very pretty?
Not in the least.
I went to the trouble of looking into the details of your background, Mrs. Blake. I wouldn't exactly call it nice reading for the kiddies. 3 husbands. One of them had to go to Mexico for his health when the Justice Department cracked down on the chemical monopoly. Another husband of yours has been barred from every racetrack in the country. Then there was that party in Hollywood where you ducked a marijuana charge that might have meant 5 years in the clink. How did you get out of that one? Buy off the judge?
Where'd you get all that information?
I called up the answer man.
Very funny.
Shall I tell you why you really came here, Mrs. Blake?
I want to know who killed my husband.
You came here because the life insurance company is ready to ante up with a small fortune now. You're his beneficiary. You're afraid I could prevent that by coming up with evidence that you might have done the killing yourself. You want to make sure I'll stay out of the picture.
You are going to stay out of the picture, Mr. Abbott.
Well, I'll tell you the next step, too. Now comes the pearl-handled revolver in the pocketbook.
When you get shot with one of those, you're just as dead as with the other kind. So help me if you stop me from collecting Dexter's life insurance.
Threats are a dime a dozen to me, Mrs. Blake. They're part of my business. I collect them, like other people collect butterflies. Good afternoon, Mrs. Blake.
Look, you two-bit keyhole peeper. If you and your junior G-Man badge stand between me and a couple of $1,000,000, it wouldn't mean a thing to me to kill you. I've done a little investigating myself. Details about your background. You're mixed up in 6 cases where one of the suspects might knock you off at any time. And if you're ever found dead, my friend, it'd take the police forever to figure who did it. They'd get into a jigsaw puzzle that'd have them flipping. And I don't mind telling you about it this way either, because I also found out your office isn't tapped.
Oh, it's very thoughtful of you.
I think of everything. Like, for instance, down at the piers, there are men who would be only too glad to take care of you for me. I can buy your death, Pat Abbott. A man no one ever heard of, no connection with you, bumps you off. Disappears on a boat to heaven only knows where.
I wonder if you're so upset with me because I might cost you the $2 million, or because I froze up when you made a play for me.
Oh, it's the $2 million. And as for you, personally, I
said good afternoon, Mrs. Blake, a long time ago.
You're underestimating me, Mr. Abbott. And you may not live to regret it.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Blake.
That little interruption over, Pat went on to the insurance company's office to see Frank Tracy.
Now, Mr. Tracy, I think I've got your man.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Who is he?
He lives at 1785 Bayside. Smooth-looking chap, tall, thin, dresses very well.
Oh. How did you do it? Did you see the necklace? How can you be sure?
I arranged a trap for him. Got him to go after a necklace my wife purposely wore to the Stardust Club.
I see. Well, what are we waiting for? Why don't we...
No. If we sail in and grab him now, we won't have much evidence to hold him on. We've got to give him more rope. He's seeing my wife again tonight.
Is he connected with Kathy Blake, as I suspected?
Well, that's hard to tell. But give me another 24 hours. I think we'll strike oil.
You mean we can arrest him within 24 hours?
Probably.
Excellent, Mr. Abbott, excellent. Now, do be careful. Francis is liable to be very slippery. Oh, how about Mrs. Blake? Do we just let her wander around?
Yeah. Remember the nursery rhyme about the lost sheep? Leave them alone, and they'll come home.
That night, I put on a very slinky evening gown. I was getting ready for another session at the club. But Pat stopped me.
You're not going to the club, Jean.
Oh, Pat Abbott, just because you're going to close in on Francis, you're getting the willies. You're afraid I'll be hurt.
No, that's not the reason.
Well, then what is it?
Francis won't be at the club to see you. He's going to be late. Very late.
I couldn't follow Pat's reasoning at the moment. But, as I learned later, Francis was at home just then, having a visitor.
1 second. Sorry to keep you waiting. What are you doing here? Why the gun? I didn't make any mistakes. Put down the gun. Put down the gun.
You did make a mistake, Al.
No, Tracy, no. I did everything you said.
But I told you not to kill anyone, Al.
Blake tried to stop me. He started screaming for the police.
Then you should have beat it.
Well, you told me...
Where is the necklace?
It's in the dresser drawer. Here, I'll get it for you. Here's the necklace.
Thank you, Al. Lovely, isn't it?
I didn't mean to kill Blake. I just wanted to shut him up. I just meant to hit him in the leg.
You were very careless.
They're not too close to me, are they? Now, take your hide. Where is he? Who is he?
Abbott? He's very close, Al. Too close for comfort.
Well, what do we do?
Oh, the answer is simple.
Well, can you get me out of here? Get me out of the country, maybe? Till things cool off?
No, Al.
Well, then, give me my cut on the necklace. I know some people. They'll help. With 25 grand, I can travel fast.
You're not getting any money.
Well, then what?
It's terribly dangerous for me to have you alive, Al. You get rattled too easily. You might say something that would be very embarrassing.
Oh, now, wait, Tracy. Listen to me. I don't want to cut. I wouldn't sing to Abbott. I'll go away. That's all I want. I want to get away. You've got to let me.
Sorry, Al. It would be stupid of me to let you go. Wherever you are, you're a potential threat to me. Now, we're wasting time.
Oh, don't shoot, Tracy. Don't shoot. Don't.
Drop the gun, Tracy.
What? Abbott! Ow, my hand.
Keep away from that window, Al. Oh. I've got more bullets and I like playing rough, remember?
You're the cab driver.
That's right. I overheard your conversation, Tracy. Al wasn't half as careless as you were.
Look, maybe we can make a deal, Abbott. What do you say? How about a deal?
Our company had a very high recovery rate on jewelry, Tracy. And you insisted on not working with the police. That seemed kind of strange. But you clinched it yourself the last time we talked. When I told you I'd found our man, you said Francis is liable to be very slippery. I'd never mentioned his name, Tracy.
Look, I've got plenty of money, Abbott. Make it worth your while to forget this.
I purposely told you I wasn't closing in on Al for 24 hours. I knew you'd come in here to see him. Now get up, Tracy.
How's 10,000 cash right now?
Stand up.
15,000.
I said stand up. You too, Al. I've got the same taxi waiting, Francis. The one we were in before. But this time we'll all have a nice, quiet, smooth ride. This time we'll have a police escort.
A few hours later, Pat had disposed of his two friends and had come home to his ever-loving wife.
Well, darling, I suppose you're full of questions, as usual.
As usual. Tracy had a very cushy spot figured out for himself, didn't he, Pat?
He sure did. The lug steals the jewelry. Tracy gets his company to shell out, say $50,000 to get it back. And Tracy quietly splits it with his pal. The company saves a fortune. Gal gets her necklace. Everything is moonlight and roses.
Well, what about Mrs. Blake?
Yeah, she was just a hellcat. She wasn't in on this deal at all.
Okay, Bob. Now, how do we go about celebrating your solving the case? You want to go down to Fisherman's Wharf and have a seafood banquet?
Oh, I don't know.
Head for Chinatown and have pressed duck?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
You got any other suggestions?
Well, yes, I did have something else in mind. What do we got in the refrigerator?
Just some cold chicken, a couple of cans of beer.
Well, let's stay right here and eat. Alone.
But why?
Because right here they got services the other places don't have on the menu.
The National Broadcasting Company has presented The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as those popular personalities of detective fiction, Pat and Jean Abbott, created by Francis Crane. In our story tonight, Miss Sherry Britton portrayed the role of Kathy Dexter. Others in the cast were Everett Sloan and Santos Ortega. The Adventures of the Abbotts was written by Howard Merrill. Original music composed and conducted by Dewey Bergman. Produced by Ted Lloyd and Bernard L. Schubert. Directed and recorded by Harry Frazee. And now this is Wayne Howell inviting you to join us next week, same time, same station, for another exciting adventure in crime with Pat and Jean in The Adventures of the Abbotts.
This is the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
Welcome back. Well, this episode was fascinating. I had to say we had one of the most evil people we'd had who turned out not to be a murderer or a criminal. She was cold, and particularly that line that Pat being married made it more fun to pursue him. I was actually somewhat disappointed when we got to the end and they decided to be unpredictable and not have her as the killer, though I think she certainly was capable of it. One thing I don't necessarily understand is when he's needing a decoy, he goes ahead and uses his own wife rather than going out and getting like a female private detective or hiring someone else. I guess that's just because he figured he could trust Jean. Though it's kind of an odd situation of, I always try to keep you out of my case unless I'm exposing you to your life to peril. Well, it looks like I missed something on our episode from 2 weeks ago, The Canary Yellow Sack. Tom emails in, I love your show, Adam. Thanks so much. You always follow your shows so closely, so I was surprised when you missed a mistake on yesterday's The Abbotts. After making it a point that the criminals use military time in their advertisement, Pat sets up his own ad for $7.20, including indicating 7:20 a.m. But he heads to Burr Street at 7:20 the next night. He should have sold the chromo for $19.20. I absolutely love the show. Poor Sean states that it drove me nuts all the way home. Well, I do try to pay careful attention to the shows, but we all miss things sometimes, and that's why I'm grateful to have people in the audience who will point it out. I have an email from Bob who says, first off, great podcast. It shows that you love what you do. I'm still back in June of 2010 trying to catch up, and I have a question about the intro music that changed for a few episodes. You said the name of the composer, Ken Curlin, but he has a lot of songs. Do you know the name of the one you used for those few episodes back in 2010? A great question, Bob. Ken Curlin, and that's KenCurlin.com, is a fabulous musician, does great things with instrumental works. I use his stuff a ton on my political podcast because I like to have a little bit of music in between the discussions to kind of lighten the mode, and the song in particular was Heroic. Since he's back in June of 2010, I just went ahead and emailed the answer to him. But it's Heroic. Well, that'll do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with Nero Wolfe. Before we do get started, I do want to encourage you to check out Audible if you haven't already. Audible is a great service that allows you to get one audiobook per month as well as an audio subscription to your choice of the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. You can listen to great mysteries like those featuring Nero Wolfe, Sherlock Holmes, or Poirot, the latest bestsellers, both fiction or nonfiction, for just one low price. You can get a 2-week free trial and get a free audiobook by going to audiblepodcast.com/oldtimeradio. That's audiblepodcast.com/oldtimeradio. Well, let's get into today's episode of Nero Wolfe, The Case of the Vanishing Shells.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ringing of that phone bell means mystery, adventure.
Nero Wolfe's office, Archie Goodwin speaking. Mr. Wolfe? No, he isn't. Huh? Oh, well. For you, maybe he is.
I'm not here.
Oh, yes. He's always here.
I've gone out.
No. He seldom ever goes out.
I won't start on anything tonight.
Well, sure, he'd love to start on a case tonight. What's your name? Oh, that's a beautiful name. Address?
Archie, it's another woman hang-up.
No, honest. I'm not Mr. Wolfe, but I'm his agent. Yeah, I'll be right over, miss. Goodbye.
What's her trouble? Where are you going?
Well, she said she's received some threatening notes and she's afraid to leave her hotel. So long, boss.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that genius who is the bulkiest, balkiest, most ponderous, and most brilliant detective in the world. Yes, none other than that chair-borne mass of unpredictable intellect, Nero Wolfe. Created by Rex Stout and brought to you in a new series of adventures over this NBC network in the person of Mr. Sidney Greenstreet.
We prefer to call tonight's story The Case of the Vanishing Shells. It didn't seem to be difficult at first, but, well, I'm not a stupid individual, but so often I allow myself to become mesmerized by beautiful women. Heaven bless them. Doris Murray was such a woman. She phoned us first late one afternoon about 5 o'clock, then again at 5:30.
Very well, Mr. Goodwin, but I would prefer to see Mr. Wolfe.
Well, I said I'd be there at 6, Miss Murray.
I don't want to talk any longer on the phone. Please hurry. There's someone at the door.
I'll see you in the cocktail lounge at your hotel.
At 6 o'clock. That's half an hour. Don't fail. Who is it?
Emil Stoner.
Oh, come in, Emil. You got my call, darling. Here, let me take your briefcase.
I'll just put it here on the piano, Doris.
Oh, I'm terribly upset about those threatening notes, darling. I know it's upset you, too, but I'm determined to find out who it is. I'm not going to let them bluff me out of my first chance to play the star part in one of your shows.
But look, Doris, there's that other part.
Is that all I mean to you? Well, what can they divulge that'll harm us? What?
Several things. And I can't afford... I mean, at this time...
You're frightened, Damon.
Doris, I'm going to give the star part to Paula.
Paula? You've been divorced for 4 years. Why?
Because I feel she
can play it better. Is that what you're going to say? Well, I can act rings around her.
Now, look, Doris. I know it's a big disappointment to you, but that's the way it is.
Get out. Get out. Go on across the hall to Paula. Give her the part. Louse up your show. She and that playwright of hers. Get out, Emil.
But, Doris...
You frightened little... Get out!
I believe, Mr. Wolfe, you're making a great mistake in not coming along.
Indeed. I'm sure that what attracts you could not possibly be of interest to me.
The gal needs help. Money is money.
Girls, money, phooey.
Yeah, well, we could have dinner out for a change. They have one of the finest chefs in town at that hotel.
You're most impolite. I'm trying to read this book.
Poetry.
Archie.
Yes, sir?
Shut up.
Well, we need money. That filthy green cabbage is necessary to our existence. This may be a tough case, you know.
You're sufficiently intelligent. Sometimes.
If I sat around like you do, I'd weigh 500 pounds, too.
Archie, leave the room. Besides, it's only 300.
What a way to run a business. Orchids, beer, books.
Don't keep the charming client waiting.
Okay, I'm going.
And always remember there is a telephone.
Thank you, waiter. Oh, good evening, Miss Moray. I'm Archie Goodwin.
Well, I didn't expect... please sit down.
Well, I think I should explain the absence of Nero Wolfe. There's so much of him that it's not too convenient to transport it about. I do all the outside work.
And I'm sure you do it well. Mr...
Well, you know, some women call me Goodwin and some call me Mr. Goodwin, and,
Yes?
the unattached call me Archie.
Hello, Archie.
Oh, splendid. I'm glad to hear it. Now we can get right down to the nasty old business that's troubling you, Doris.
First, here's the $500 retainer fee.
Well, thank you. Now, what's the note about?
Well, there are 2 notes, both printed by hand.
Uh-huh.
Oh, will you hand me my purse, please?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Oh, I see. Doris Moray. If you fail to withdraw from the cast of Stoner's next production by start of rehearsals Monday, both you and Stoner will have a blasted reputation and perhaps other injuries from which you will be unable to recover.
The other one is like it, only more vehement.
Well, someone or a group of someones are intent on keeping you out of Stoner's shows, huh? It's too bad. His next one is said to be a sure smash hit and a star-making part for the leading woman.
Yes, Emil Stoner wants me to play it. He's been planning on it ever since David Banning wrote the play.
What does David Banning think of you playing the part?
Well, I don't think he's too enthused about it. You see, Mr. Stoner and Paula Kenyon have been divorced for 4 years, but she has continued to be his top leading woman. Now she's engaged to David Banning, who wrote this play.
Oh? Makes things a bit difficult.
Well, of course, Rick Hunter, Stoner's director, is...
Hunter's somewhat in favor of your playing the part.
Well, Rick Hunter is very fond of my work.
And very fond of you as well, huh?
Yes, unfortunately. I like Rick Hunter tremendously, but Emil Stoner has been of greater interest to me. In fact, we're more or less engaged, Mr. Goodwin.
Oh, well, had any words lately with the ex-Mrs. Stoner? Paula Kenyon, is that her name?
Paul and I were great friends when I first joined the Stoner Productions, but I don't know, I don't think she appreciated the fact that Mr. Stoner and Rick Hunter, the director, took such an interest in me.
Tell me, did you ever think you were in love with Rick Hunter?
Yes, at first I was thrilled by his artistic imagination. And then as time went on, I realized that he was subject to melancholia. Mr. Stoner was more stable, and I needed someone older to advise me.
Well, what's wrong with your reputation of Mr. Stoner's?
Well, there's nothing I fear, but I'm afraid Mr. Stoner is somewhat disturbed by these threats. He feels there's something in his past of sufficient import to really harm him. I think it's nonsense.
Well, then what we have to do is uncover this person or persons before you end up with ruined careers on Broadway. Where does the ex-Mrs. Stoner live?
Well, as a matter of fact, she lives just down the hall from me. Lived here for years.
Oh, well, I think it's advisable, honey, that you stay close to your room until we solve this thing.
Oh, but I'm not afraid for my life, Archie.
No? Well, I am. I'll see you into your room, Doris.
Oh, now, please, Mr. Goodwin, if you...
Oh, you don't trust the boy, huh?
Oh, well,
Such beautiful eyes.
Well,
Lovely red hair. Yeah. You could have the lead in my new play. I never wrote one, but for you, I'll try anything.
Come along.
Here's your bag.
Well, hello, Doris.
Oh, hello, Rick. Mr. Goodwin, this is Rick Hunter.
Hiya, Hunter. Nice shows you've been putting on.
I've just been admiring your work, Goodwin.
Oh, well, that's nice. I'm glad. Nothing like encouragement for a beginner, Mr. Hunter?
You're ready for the big time from what I saw. Heard from Emil Stoner today, Doris?
I talked to him once this morning. Have you been sitting in the cocktail lounge all afternoon?
Yeah. That I have, honey. I want to see you play that lead, baby. And I think I just about got it all settled.
Dreaming about it won't settle it. Liquor never accomplished anything in itself, Rick. Come on, Mr. Goodwin.
He's a very jealous man, Doris. In fact, right now, I can feel his thoughts piercing me between the shoulder blades. Oh, excuse me. Here's a phone booth.
Yes, Archie?
How do you know it's Archie?
I felt the time was exactly right for you to call.
I wish you felt it was time to earn some money.
Is this a worthwhile case?
Well, she's a beautiful redhead, and,
That, of course, makes it very worthwhile.
Yeah, well, I got $500 as a retainer.
Phooey, a pittance, and probably all you'll ever get.
What do you mean by that?
She's probably guilty.
Now, look, boss, she's the victim. Received notes threatening her reputation and her health if she plays the star part in Emil Stoner's new production. Also, they threatened Emil Stoner likewise. The playwright, Dave Banning, is engaged to Paula Kenyon. Incidentally, she lives here at the hotel, too, just down the hall from Doris.
I remember her. and the playwright wants Paula Kenyon to play the part. Well, Archie, you have only the beginning. It is probably too late to prevent whatever is going to happen.
Like what, for instance?
Have you found a body yet? Call me after you find the body.
What body? There's no body.
But there will be, Archie. There's always a body where you're concerned. Either a body beautiful or a dead one. Bye.
Thanks for seeing me to my room, Archie.
Oh, I'm not stopping here, Doris. I'll take a look inside.
But I'm not...
Oh, I insist. Part of my job, you know. If I fail to take every precaution, Mr. Wolfe would never... Well, look in that chair.
Emil.
Emil? Emil Stoner? Oh, 3 red dots on his shirt front. Doris, hold on.
I'm all right. Yes, I'm all right.
All right, sit down. That's it. Now, let's see. The body's still warm. What's this crumpled in his left hand? A horoscope. Between the fingers of his right hand, an unlit cigarette. Monogram PK.
Paula Kenyon.
This horoscope is from March. Something he picked up from your desk here?
I don't believe in astrology.
Where'd he get this cigarette with Paula Kenyon's monogram?
Poor Emil. Poor Emil. I didn't believe anyone would really harm us. Why was I so stubborn?
When did you see him last?
Please, shouldn't we do something? Call the police?
No, not yet. When did you see him?
Why, I saw him this morning. I'm so shocked I can hardly think clearly.
Doris.
Yes?
There's a briefcase here on the piano with a newspaper on top of it.
What? Oh, it is. Yes, it's Emil's. He must have left it here this morning.
That's strange. Emil Stoner was bald, but...
But what?
Well, I'm sure he's a man who always wore a hat, but I see no hat.
He must have come up the elevator as I went down to meet you.
Who would know he'd come up here? Your director, Rick Hunter, he said he'd been in the bar all afternoon. What else was it he said? Thought he had everything just about settled.
Oh, no, Rick couldn't. He just... Oh, Mr. Goodwin, I couldn't believe that.
I can believe anything about anybody. I learned that the hard way. In my book, everybody's guilty until proved otherwise. Even you, baby.
What?
Even you. Yeah. A Herald Tribune newspaper. Are you sure you haven't seen him since this morning, Doris?
What are you doing? Absolutely nothing. Someone came in here and shot him. Call the police. I insist. Maybe...
What?
Maybe I did leave my door unlocked. Why did I do that?
Well, he couldn't have opened the door otherwise, could he?
No.
Give me the check room, please. Oh, hello. Do you know Mr. Emil Stoner, the producer? You do? Well, tell me, did he check his hat with you this afternoon or this evening? He didn't, huh? All right, thanks. He must have carried it up here to this floor. Doris, do you have a gun?
I own a gun. A small .25 automatic. But it's not here.
Where is it?
I had the handle repaired, and it's been in my dressing room for a week or 2.
I hate to do this, Doris, but I'm going to move the body away from the back of that chair.
Oh.
There. Yeah, 3 wounds. 1 bullet went through the upper part of the chest, out the middle of the back. I'd say right through the heart. By the angle of the wound, he was shot while sitting down.
Please, Mr. Goodwin, must we stay here?
I want to give this room a thorough going over. We'll go down to the lobby. I want to use that phone booth again. And, Doris, I hope...
I know what you're going to say. You hope that gun of mine...
is still in your dressing room at the theater.
Nero Wolfe speaking.
Oh, Mr. Wolfe, may I have your autograph? I'm taking a correspondence course on how to be a detective, and I think you're a wizard.
It's so kind of you to say so.
I would be just thrilled to have your autograph on the bottom of a paycheck.
Why are you calling from a phone booth?
What? Who said I was?
It's obvious. There's no room tone reverberation.
Well, you shouldn't have to ask. You know everything before it happens.
You found the body then. Happened just before you got there.
Oh, now, look, I took the girl up to her room to be sure it was safe for her to go in, and... Okay. And there, sitting in a big leather chair, was Emil Stoner. Shot 3 times with a small caliber gun, dead about an hour. 1 shot went through the body from the upper part of the chest to the middle of the back. Therefore, he was shot while sitting down. The killer was standing, huh?
I'm listening.
Oh. Well, his left hand was clutching a horoscope folder, and
between the index and second finger of the right hand was an unlit cigarette with a monogram on it, PK. Emil Stoner is bald, but there was no hat in the room. However, on the piano was his briefcase, and on top of it, a 4 o'clock afternoon edition of the Herald Tribune.
Better look in the briefcase, Archie. No weapon?
No weapon. But Doris Murray says she owns a .25 caliber automatic, and it's in her dressing room at the theater. Also, she claims she hadn't seen Stoner since this morning.
You found no empty shells about the floor?
None.
What did you do with the bullet?
What bullet?
The one which passed through his chest and lodged in the back of the leather chair. Are you there?
Boss, I'm a very stupid fella.
Stop bragging. The bullet.
Boss, there ain't no hole in the back of that chair. I just realized it. Maybe he was standing up. Then the killer must have been on stilts.
Archie, let us pretend, only pretend, that you're very observant. Now proceed to Paula Kenyon's apartment, just down the hall, you said, and see what she knows without divulging the fact that Stoner is dead. And look sharp.
My gears must be slipping.
Archie, do you know what great event will be celebrated tomorrow?
Yeah, my birthday. What'd you get me?
Cuthbert's correspondence detective course in 4 easy lessons. Bye.
This is Paula's apartment.
No answer. Let's see if it's open. Oh, there's no one inside. Come on in. Now, look, if anyone walks in on us, we found the door open and we just came in to wait,
Which is the truth, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Oh. Here on the desk we have a stack of horoscopes, Doris. And a box of Paula's monogrammed cigarettes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Huh?
This is Emil's gray fedora hat.
Then he was in this apartment this afternoon. What are you staring at? Oh, small pearl-handled automatic.
Yes.
.25 caliber. Yeah, it's been fired very recently. We won't touch it now. Does it look like yours?
Archie, it is mine.
Your initials?
I phoned old Jenkins, the stage doorman at the theater, to look in my dressing room, and... well, my gun isn't there.
Did you leave the gun out in plain view in the dressing room?
Yes, for several days anyway. Then I put it behind the mirror.
I suppose many people have seen it, then.
I'm sure.
I hope, Doris, that your fingerprints are not the only ones on that gun.
If they use my gun to shoot him in my apartment, why would they bring the gun back here and leave it in plain
Well,
sight?
maybe they didn't do it just that way.
No?
His hat's here, the gun is here, and yet he's dead in your apartment.
How can you answer that?
Well, maybe he was sitting here waiting for Paula, and someone called him out and over to your place and shot him. That's not good. Doesn't make sense. Now, if he was sitting in this chair here and someone entered that door, Hey.
What is it?
Look in the chair back. Huh? Little round hole. Start looking for some empty shells around here.
Find something?
No, I want to make a call. He was shot with this automatic. 3 shells were ejected. They certainly vanished.
Nero Wolfe speaking.
Archie, I'm at Paula Kenyon's. She's not here. Found his hat, a stack of horoscopes on the desk, box of monogrammed cigarettes, a .25 automatic which belongs to Miss Moray, recently fired, but not an empty shell in sight. No blood, but a single small hole in the back of the chair near the desk. Doris Moray is with me.
I will call Inspector Kramer now about the body and have ballistics check the bullets with the gun.
And the bullet in the chair back?
Did you find anything of particular importance in Emil Stoner's briefcase?
Yes, I found...
Never mind. Bring the girl here at once.
Okay, boss. Say, don't you think I'd better wait for Paula Kenyon? Uh-oh, here she is. Bye.
Bring her along, too, if you can. Goodbye.
Hello, Paula. Well, Doris, what are you doing here? I wasn't aware that I left the door unlocked.
Seems to be contagious this evening. I left mine unlocked, too. Hello, Dave. Miss Kenyon, Mr. Goodwin.
Hello, Doris.
Hello.
Archie, this is Dave Banning, the playwright.
How are you, Mr. Banning?
How do you do?
I've heard all about your new play, and I wanted to meet you. Doris thought you might be over here, and the door was ajar, so we, well...
I just walked in. I hope you don't mind, Paula.
Certainly not. I'm used to people just walking in.
We were here a while ago, went down to the cocktail lounge for a while.
When does the play open, or have you cast it yet?
Mr. Stoner handles that part of it. Are you a prospective investor, Goodwin?
Oh, I've had a number of flings in the business. Matter of fact, I expect to see Mr. Stoner tonight.
You do?
Tonight? Here? I don't understand. What's this fencing all about? Doris, you're not just visiting me. We've hardly spoken for... Oh.
Is that your gun, Miss Kenyon?
It's yours, Doris.
Yes, that's right, Paula. He was in my dressing room.
When did you see Mr. Stoner last?
But I haven't seen him today.
I had lunch with him. Why?
What hat did he wear at lunchtime, Mr. Banning?
Why, the gray fedora.
How did it get here? That's Amel's. What is this? What are you two doing here?
Where is Emil? Come on, cut out the melodramatics.
Mr. Stoner is dead.
He's what? Paula.
And without any further explanation, I shall have to ask you to accompany me downtown.
Police?
If you will, please. They're still in the front room, boss. I'll bring them into your office when you're ready.
Yes, Archie, I'm sure they're all anxious to talk. They've been sitting there for an hour now.
Maybe we ought to make some sort of explanation to them, huh?
Why? This sort of technique should work very well in this particular instance.
Yeah, but I don't know about that director, Rick Hunter. He may be difficult.
Does anyone know that you found the completed and signed contract in the briefcase?
No one.
Mm-hmm. Good. Now we have the threat notes, the contract, the afternoon newspaper, the briefcase, the fedora hat, the gun, no ejected shells, the horoscope, the cigarette, and the 2 chairs. One with a small hole in it.
Come in.
Ah, Inspector Kramer at last. What have you?
Well, we covered every inch of that place and didn't find a single empty shell. There were 2 bullets in the body and the one that passed through him into the chair back in Paula Kenyon's place. They were all 3 fired from Doris Murray's little automatic.
Any fingerprints on the gun?
None but Doris Murray's.
Not unexpected, to say the least.
The bullet that was lodged in the chair in Paula's place went through his heart. Now, he was apparently shot in her room, but...
But how did he get into Doris Murray's place? I'll be able to explain that when we locate those 3 empty shells, Inspector. Bring our guest in, Archie.
Come in, please. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Nero Wolfe. Miss Paula Kenyon.
Hello.
Miss Doris Murray.
Hello, Mr.
Rick Hunter, the director.
How do you do?
David Banning, the playwright.
How do you do?
Won't you be seated, please? May I present Inspector Kramer of Homicide?
How do you do, Inspector?
Mr. Wolfe has asked you here to give such details as you recall, which might be of assistance to him in the solution of the murder of Emil Stoner.
Mr. Hunter, as the director, whom did you favor as the star of your next production?
Why, Doris Murray.
You have been deeply interested in Miss Murray?
Hasn't done me much good.
But you do love her?
I do.
And you are deeply interested in the progress of her career?
I am, most assuredly.
Did you know that Mr. Stoner had made out and signed a contract for a certain woman to play the lead in the new show?
No.
You knew that Doris Murray had a gun in her dressing room?
Yes.
You were in the hotel cocktail lounge all afternoon until you met Doris and Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
And you could have seen Emil Stoner enter the lobby and go to the elevator?
I could.
Could you prove that you never left the cocktail lounge until you met Doris and Archie?
Maybe not.
Did you see Mr. Stoner go into the elevator?
I did.
Mr. Banning, you wrote the new play. Were you in favor of Miss Murray playing the part?
Why, no. I felt Paula Kenyon was better suited for it.
You and Miss Kenyon are engaged to be married?
Yes.
Anything happened to Mr. Stoner, you, as next in line, could assign the role as you saw fit?
That's correct.
Did you know that Mr. Stoner had made a final decision on the part?
I did not.
He didn't tell you anything about it at lunch today?
No, I made a strong plea for Paula.
You know about the gun in Miss Murray's dressing room?
Everyone did, apparently.
Very well. Miss Kenyon, did Emil Stoner visit your apartment often?
Not often. We were not on too friendly terms.
Did you phone him to visit you this afternoon?
No, who said I did?
No one? I merely asked. Were you, by any chance, still in love with Emil Stoner?
Now, see here, I don't appreciate that kind of talk.
Just relax, Mr. Banning.
I was not in love with Mr. Stoner. That was over.
You and Doris Murray were at one time very friendly.
Yes. Well, I found out how two-faced she was. Emil was a fool to fall for her, but you couldn't tell him anything. All she's interested in is a career.
You're not interested in your career, Miss Kenyon?
Well, yes, in a way.
You wanted the star part. You phoned Stoner this morning.
Yes, but he said he was going to give it to her.
You knew about Doris's gun?
No, I
didn't. You recognized it immediately, boss.
Well, yes, I knew. What if I did?
Then you wrote these threatening notes to Miss Murray.
I did not. I did not.
You didn't know the contract had already been signed?
No.
Then you still had a motive to kill him.
I wrote those notes. She had nothing to do with it. You can check them on my typewriter.
We know, Mr. Banning. We've already done it.
I know how it looks, but Paula didn't do it. I knew he was coming to her place. I called him. I knew Paula was out. I did it.
If so, what did you do with the ejected shells?
I threw them away.
How many?
3.
Oh, no, David, please don't.
I don't believe you, Mr. Banning. Miss Murray, did you know the contract had been made out and signed?
No,
You're lying, Miss Murray. You said you didn't see Stoner this afternoon.
I didn't.
You called him and asked him to visit you. You did get the threat notes and they frightened you. But you didn't know they would frighten Stoner.
I did not phone him, nor did I see him.
Yes, you did. His briefcase was on the piano. And he was there in the late afternoon because he brought with him a 4 o'clock edition of the Herald Tribune.
What if he was there? I didn't kill him.
He told you then about his decision. He left Halliday. We got the briefcase and went to Paula's apartment to wait for her.
That's not true. That's not true.
Filled with rage, you got your gun, which you said had disappeared from your dressing room, then calmly put it into your bag, walked across the hall, and shot him as he sat reading a horoscope.
No.
Archie, a handbag. Thank you. Notice, I run my finger through a hole in the corner. She fired through the bag. And see, 3 empty shells.
No.
And here's a contract made out to Paula Kenyon. Too bad, Miss Murray.
Well, that's a good day's work, boss.
Some beer, Archie.
Right. Say, tell me, how did Stoner, if he was shot in Paula's room, get back to Doris's room? She couldn't carry him.
Oh, now, Archie, that's not too difficult. He walked.
Shot through the heart? Impossible.
That's a fallacy, Archie. Official medical records show that people have walked a block in such instances.
No wonder Doris was so shocked when she saw him back in her room.
The shooting took place after she called us, and it seemed unbelievable that anyone would leave the gun and not the ejected shells. Ergo, the gun must have been concealed when fired.
Yeah. Paula would have no reason to do that, because she was in her own apartment.
And these men are not the type who would have fired through their coats.
And Doris, before she started down the hall, would naturally conceal the gun, huh?
In her handbag. Where else?
Boss, midnight. It's another day. I'm a year older.
Yes. Cuthbert's correspondence detective course in 4 easy lessons. Happy birthday, Archie.
You have been listening to The New Adventures of Nero Wolfe, starring Sidney Greenstreet. Tonight's transcribed story was based on the characters created by Rex Stout. This is an Edwin Fadiman program, produced and directed by J. Donald Wilson. In the cast were Gerald Moore as Archie Goodwin, and Gene Bates, Betty Lou Gerson, Bill Johnstone, Peter Leeds, and Vic Perrin. Next week at this same time, Nero Wolfe and Archie will bring you The Case of the Party for Death. Don Stanley speaking. Three chimes mean good times on NBC.
Welcome back. Well, in this one, Wolfe really operated much more like a traditional genius detective in the normal Nero Wolfe fashion. And it turned out that his instincts were dead on about the case and what they would collect from it. And I'm kind of sorry this is the last Gerald Moore episode. It seems like once Greenstreet and an Archie Goodwin work together where they've got some real chemistry going, that the Archie Goodwin departs. I had the same thought with Lawrence Dobkin previous to Moore, but this one I think really could have worked out well over the long run. Well, I've also been listening and watching quite a bit of Nero Wolfe. Got the audio book, Not Quite Dead Enough, a couple interesting Nero Wolfe novellas, and also Black Orchids. And I finally saw the Golden Spiders, which predated the Nero Wolfe mystery series on A&E. I'm kind of disappointed to be through that because I enjoyed that series so much. I'm skeptical that anybody's going to quite get that same level that Timothy Hutton had. Really, Hutton's was just picture perfect, I thought. And the way he did the visuals and the sets, truly remarkable. I'm afraid the next Nero Wolfe series might be with computer animation or something. Ooh, and that's going to be... All right, now on to more pleasant thoughts. We got some comments on my article I did, review of Johnny Staccato. In the review, I made a reference to the fact of the term swinging long hair was the title of the last Johnny Staccato episode. And I noted there wasn't anybody, not even a woman in there, that had long hair. Tim writes back, Adam, I look forward to viewing this series if I ever come across it. In answer to your comment about swinging long hair, since the show has a jazz motif, the phrase might refer to playing classical music, long hair music, in a jazz tempo. Keep up the great work. I enjoy your podcast and particularly your commentary. Thanks so much. That translation helps, although I guess it would have helped if the classical musician, because there was a classical musician who came and was playing just like that in a jazz tempo. So that does make a lot of sense. And then we do have a comment from Tom, says, sadly, Cassavetes, John Cassavetes, the star of Johnny Staccato, rarely cared for any role he didn't create. And Cassavetes actually took the very extraordinary step, I mentioned this in my review, of publicly criticizing his own program to get it canceled so he could go and work on other projects. And he actually got it canceled 12 episodes early. One thing I did find in my research, I found a lot of interesting little nuggets about the actual Johnny Staccato program and its production and what Cassavetes thought of it, and why it was a 27-episode run when 39 episodes was more or less the norm for a television series back then. But I did notice that a lot of the writers got some details about the show, about the actual show and the way it played out, what it was like. They got it wrong. I've just sat there and I watched all 27 episodes over the last month or two. And sometimes the descriptions of what the show was like just seem totally foreign to reality. And I guess if there's a lesson in there, it's to kind of be careful in terms of judging whether a show's going to be good or not. If the author who is talking about it, hasn't seen it in 30 or 40 years. Because the situation with Johnny Staccato is because there were so few episodes made. There wasn't really any history of syndication. You basically had what I call gray market DVDs floating around with Staccato on it, and that would have been probably the main people who would have seen it. There was just an episode or two released here or there. So the consequences any TV critics say writing about in the 1990s or 2000s, they're writing from memory, they're writing from what they've heard from other people about the show, rather than based on first-hand knowledge. So it was an interesting phenomenon. It even ended up in the New York Daily News from 2002, found a piece that was totally inaccurate as to the way the series actually worked. So hopefully, as more of these shows become available, some of the myths that have grown up about some of them will also be busted over time. All right, well, that'll do it for now. We'll be back tomorrow with Let George Do It. Well, before we do get into today's episode of Let George Do It, I do want to encourage you to check out Tales of the Dim Night. It is a great superhero comedy with lots of fun, action, adventure, and a very strong family story. You can check out sample chapters, interviews, and purchase the book at dimnight.com. Well, we're going to get into today's episode The Man Under the Elm Tree.
Personal notice. Danger's my stock and trade. If you feel like the knife thrower's assistant in a high wind, you've got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Standard of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and Standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. The Man Under the Elm Trees. Another adventure of George Valentine.
Dear Valentine, you may not remember, but you and I had a very interesting talk once in the smoking car of the Streamliner. At least as far as Mayville Junction we did. Anyway, that's why I feel I can call on you now as a friend. I live with my little sister, Mrs. Letitia Packler. She's got too much money, more than's good for any woman. She can't control it, I can't control her, and unless you help out, there's going to be a big, loud crash at the end of the line. Now, I've warned her that you might
be coming to visit. As a friend, of course.
Hey, wait a minute, hold it, Brooksy. What's the guy's name?
Oh, Hannigan. Del Hannigan. Remember him?
People you meet on trains.
Well, anyway, it says, so Letitia or no one else will suspect the real reason you're here. You see, the big trouble is my sister likes to make friends, too. Only the wrong kind of friends. The kind that ought to be in prison. Sincerely, Del Hannigan.
Oh, the name still means nothing. And as for Mayville Junction, I'm darned if I ever heard of it.
George, it's the college town. Just because their football teams weren't as good as the one...
All right, Angel, all right. Let's go boola boola, even if it is at Mayville College.
You must be Mr. Valentine and Miss Brooks.
Yes, that's right.
Well, you're so much earlier than I expected. Look at me. I'm all over cake flour. There's going to be a picnic, you know, the faculty welcoming committee. Oh, but I'm so glad to meet you. I'm Tisha Packler.
You're Oh, how do you do?
And this is Skinny Adams. Skinny lives with us, you know.
Young man, I didn't see you salute the flag.
Huh? Well, I'm not in uniform.
I'm keeper of the flag.
What?
Flags at the college. I used to be on the ground and flowers committee, but I'm not anymore. Doctor said I couldn't. But what I'm really interested in is chemistry. You look like a serious-minded young man. You realize that I actually saw Bratislav of nitrogen fame? He said to me, Adams...
Oh, Skinny, please. They don't want to hear your stories now. Besides, if you're going to feel strong enough for the picnic, you better lie down, hadn't you? I'm sure Dell's put up the beach umbrella over your hammock.
Oh, all right, Tisha. I know what's good for me and what isn't.
See you later, Mr. Adams.
Who is he, Mrs. Packler?
Skinny? Well, about 12 years ago, he was an assistant or something in the chemistry department. He was ambitious, but not very successful. And then there was an explosion, and it affected him.
Oh?
Doctors say that he's borrowed more than his time by now. Can't stand any strain or undue shock or too much heat.
Well, why isn't he in the hospital?
What? Well, good heavens, the college gives him his pension, and he has his choice. And after all, they say I take better care of him here in the boarding house than they could. Now, you come right inside, and I'll fix you a lemonade while I finish baking my cookies.
Say, where is Delbert, Mrs. Packler?
Oh, he's down at the ice plant getting some salt for the ice cream freezer. He and the other roomer.
The other roomer?
Mr. Stevenson. He travels in jewelry, you know, but I've boarded him a week.
Mrs. Packler, your brother didn't tell us about your husband either.
Oh, excuse me. Tom passed away, you know. It's been 6 months, but I still get a little shock.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. It's just silly of me. It's just... Well, on a holiday, people can't help wishing for the things that are past, can they?
No, I guess not. But, holiday today, and you mentioned a picnic?
Hand me that cookie cutter. Oh, it's the welcoming, that's all, for the faculty. None of us are really connected with the college, but you see, next week's registration, and that's how all of us in this town make a living. Off the college folks. Oh, we parade, and turn out the town band, and have potato races.
I see.
I guess we just try to pretend that we're part of it. To pretend that there's some excitement in our lives. and that it isn't true that nothing ever really happened in Mayville.
Hot suspender weather, I call it, but now down to facts. Who's going to win the Coast Conference, USC, or is Washington going to end up...
what do you say we hold up the sports page, Mr. Hannigan? You wrote us a letter, and you said your little sister had more money than is good for any woman.
My friend, she's got 40,000 smackaroos. How do you like that?
Oh, where'd you get it?
Life insurance. That crazy, no-good husband of hers. Dumb, that's all he was. Got himself killed dragging his own shotgun backward through a fence. You see what I mean?
Uh-huh. I see you didn't think much of him.
Well, he paid the premiums. But a waster, that's all he was. Never turned a lick of work. Letting Tisha slave herself up to the elbow. She still does it. Boarding students who can't pay their bills. Nursing all the characters. Like that scientific earbender back there in the hammock by the meadow. A gal like my sister ought to get out more. She ought to travel like I do. See the world.
But she makes the wrong kind of friends, you said. The kind that ought to be in prison. The kind that leads to crashes at the end of the line. Now, just who is it you're so worried about? The other roomer?
My friend, you guessed it. Stevenson. Rick Stevenson, he calls himself. He's been here 1 week, and he's buttering her up already.
Buttering her up?
Sure. He knows his stuff all right. First, he goes to work getting next to that guy Adams. But he's really aiming at Tisha. Don't you kid yourself.
Okay. So the boarder's making passes at your sister. So what?
My friend, that man's a phony. A four-flusher, I tell you. Listen, chest hardware, he says he's...
What?
Jewelry, selling fraternity pins. Now, if he knows the difference between a DU shield and a brass door knocker, I'll eat my hat. I've been around, I can tell. I'm a deek myself.
Well, Mr. Hannigan, supposing he is giving out a phony line. Your sister's old enough to watch out for herself, isn't she? What do you expect us to do about it?
Well, for gosh sakes, snoop around. Nail something on the nosy fortune hunter so we can run him out of town. He's after Tisha's money, I tell you.
Well, what of it? So are you, aren't you?
Huh?
Yeah, isn't that the real idea? Now, how do you think she should spend it? Close up the boarding house, and the two of you go traveling, first class maybe, her paying the bills?
Well, at least I'm her brother. At least I'm thinking of her place. What's the matter, my friend? You sore because I got you down here on something that don't look so important?
No. I kind of like Mayville. Only when it comes to listening to stories, I think I'd just as soon hear them from little skinny Adams.
Listen to me, would you? I actually saw Chinsky, the biochemist, and Branislav of nitrogen.
Hey, George.
And I saw
He sounds asleep.
But still trying to bend people's ears. Hey, you know, Angel, we're in the midst of a bunch of nuts.
George, look at his face. It's so red.
Yeah?
A man in his condition shouldn't be lying out here in the sun. George, of course. The umbrella's come down.
Yeah. Better wake him up.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Adams?
See here. You haven't been standing there, have you?
What do you mean?
I haven't been saying things, have I?
No, of course not. We just came out.
Don't you lie to me. I can always tell when a student is lying. I'll have you know that I've got every one of my senses. I was hurt in an explosion, I think, but I can see. The things I see. And I can hear better than you can.
Oh, you were just mumbling, Mr. Adams.
Say anything about the elm tree?
The elm tree?
Oh, come on. Something I've seen. A man under the elm tree.
No.
That's good. Here now, who did that?
What?
That umbrella was up when I went to sleep. I know it was.
Oh, now, take it easy, Skinny. The cat's probably just slipped down. Don't get your dander up.
Yes.
Hello, you two. I'm Rick Stevenson.
Yes, so I gather. Well, my name is
I know. I've heard all about you, Miss Brooks. Here for the holiday, huh?
Yeah, that's right. We sort of like a quiet college town.
Yeah, relief from the city, isn't it? Okay, come on, Skinny. It's 12 o'clock.
You sure, Rick? It's that late already?
We're just going to wait on the porch there for the town parade out on the side porch. Maybe you'd like to join us.
Well, thanks, Mr. Stevenson. We'll be with you in just a minute.
Well, whatever you say.
George.
Let's see. About an hour in this sun might kill a man like Adams, mightn't it?
Well, it certainly would make him very sick.
Here. Slide up that beach umbrella, will you?
What?
Yeah, go on. Put it up again. Go ahead.
Oh, well, all right. I'll try. Oh, there. George.
Yes, Angel. It's all you can do to force that catch. It couldn't slip. Somebody pushed it down.
Well, George, they're all outside now.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Look, what if Mr. Stevenson guesses that we've been in his room?
Oh, well, I'll worry about that later. Hey, try the closet, will you?
Okay.
Better smoke this fire, Angel. We've got to work fast on the few sparks that we know about.
Well, I agree. Somebody's trying to turn welcome faculty into Memorial Day. Oh, but it seems so impossible. That poor, harmless man.
Yeah?
I don't see why anybody would want...
What's the matter? What is it?
A letter. It was in the pocket of Rick's sport jacket.
Huh? Well, suspended weather has one benefit.
Federal States Life Insurance Company. It says... Well, it's just a note. It says, Stevenson, on February 14th, the company paid $40,000 to Mrs. Packler. Husband died in hunting accident. Suggest you look into it. Wait, Rick Stevenson must be an insurance investigator.
Here, let me see that.
Here.
Yeah. It is a clipping in the same envelope. It's an old one. Mayville Herald, March 21st. Our town was grieved to hear of the unfortunate death of Mr. Tom Packler. His shotgun was accidentally discharged as he was crossing a fence near his own back property line, just half a mile from his own house. Tom died in the meadow he loved so well under the familiar canopy of the... Oopsie.
What?
Under the elm trees.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. What do you think you'll be wearing when cool autumn days turn up? Maybe a tweed suit or a woolen one? And next winter, an overcoat? And a raincoat during the wet spring? Sure, you're climate-tailored. But here's the surprising thing. Chevron Supreme gasoline is also climate-tailored. It's scientifically blended according to the West's different altitude and temperature zones and according to the season. That's why with Chevron Supreme in the tank, you can be sure of peak performance wherever you drive the year round. Try it tomorrow, and right away you'll notice your car's quick response to this premium quality gasoline. Faster starts, faster pickup in traffic, and smoother ping-free power on hills. You'll find you can't buy a better gasoline for today's high-compression engines. So to give your car its best chance, give it climate-tailored Chevron Supreme. Ask for it at independent Chevron gas stations and at standard stations where they say and mean we take better care of your car. Now back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. You meet a frail, harmless little man whose only offense is boring people. Or is it? He's apparently so dangerous to someone that an attempt has been made on his life. In the other roomer in Mrs. Packler's boarding house, Rick Stevenson. First, he seemed to be only interested in Mrs. Packler's money, but now Rick seems to be an insurance investigator interested in her husband's death. Well, if you're anything like George Valentine, you know there's a lot more going on in little Mayfield than talk about ice cream and football.
Won't you have some more, Miss Brooks?
Oh, no, thank you, Mrs. Packler, really.
You know, last year I ate 6 dishes of ice cream and still went out to the picnic, kicked the football farther than the coach did and won the sack race, too. Remember, Dick?
Oh, sack race. Tom Packler carried you all the way. Oh, I remember that.
He did not, just because he listened to you ramble on and on, trying to make yourself important, make people listen to nothing. All the famous scientists you saw that nobody ever heard of. Brolislav, Kinsky, DeFrizzelli. You know, Valentine, Tisha's husband was the only man in town too lazy to stop this this wreck of the Hespers from...
Albert, please, you've been drinking.
Oh, gosh, what's the celebration for if you can't take a little...
Under the elm tree.
What's that? What's that, Skinny?
Come on, Professor. I think you and I better take a little stroll outside before it rains.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Stevenson. What on earth's the matter with everybody? Miss Brooks, there's still an hour before the picnic.
Mrs. Packler, I think we'd like to take a little walk ourselves, if you don't mind.
Well, of course.
Yes, I have a couple of things I want to pick up down at the drugstore.
Oh, okay, George. See you later.
At last, Angel. Too much thunder in the air for me.
Young man, you're going to fall in beside us. Better salute that flag.
Uh-oh.
Yes, sir. I'm still keeping flags. A wreck of the Hespers is still good for some jobs.
Why, of course you are, Mr. Adams.
Sure. First thing I noticed about the old house here was that flag hanging up there on the balcony of your room.
I used to be on the Grounds and Flowers Committee for a while. Before that, maybe I was only an assistant in the chemistry
Hey, but wait a minute. You know what I noticed about your flag? Well, go ahead, take a look at it. The blue field, Mr. Adams. It's in the wrong direction. Your flag up there is backwards.
Yes. Yes, sir. Well, excuse me.
I'll run up and fix it for you,
No.
Professor.
I'll do it. It's my job. I'll do it.
Poor guy. Well, at least we're alone again. Come on, Angel.
Okay. George, what do you want at the drugstore?
The telephone. One that's in a booth instead of a public hallway. I'm going to talk to the police.
About Tom Packler's death 6 months ago?
That's right. Lieutenant Riley in the city can run a fast check for me. The insurance company's angle, everything about it. Come on, we'll cut across the back of the house.
Okay. Well, if Rick Stevenson is their investigator, they certainly must suspect that it wasn't just a shotgun accident.
You are so right, Angel, or he wouldn't be here. Besides, the clipping said Packler died under those elm trees. And Skinny's got a secret about what he saw under the elm trees.
Murder, maybe. Well, you can just see the trees from his hammock at the edge of the meadow. So, George, somebody's taking down that umbrella must have been an attempt to get rid of him before he tells what he knows to Stevenson.
And it's not hard to get rid of him. Not any harder than getting rid of a helpless little child.
George, wait a minute.
What is it, Angel?
Well, wouldn't this be the Packler's woodshed?
Yeah, sure, I guess so.
Well, this piece of wood.
What do you mean?
It's the same color, the same shape, the same as those things on the front of the house, the balcony railing.
The posts that hold the railing up.
And to reach the flag, you'd have to lean against the railing. George!
Come on, Angel.
Oh, look. George, you can see it from here. Oh, why didn't we notice it before? The corner post is missing.
Stay out here, Brooksy.
Yes, George.
Watch for Skinny on the balcony. I gotta stop him.
Skinny!
Oh, I'm sorry, Skinny. Did I hurt you? Are you all right?
Hello, young man.
Look, I had to stop you. If you'd leaned against the railing, the corner support is off. It's loose, see?
Hello, young man.
Now, Skinny, listen carefully. Someone was trying to make you fall, have an accident, kill you. Now, you know something, and you've got to tell me. You saw something out under the elm trees. What did you see?
Might rain today.
Oh, Lord.
George.
Brooksy, you're going to guard this guy with your life. I've got work to do. Okay, Angel, how is he?
He's asleep, George. Did you get Lieutenant Riley?
Yeah, from the drugstore. Riley has a man checking, local police, insurance company. The man will get in touch with me here.
Well, what about Rick Stevenson?
I don't know. I didn't see him. Out nursing his jaw and swearing at me, I guess.
George, this time we ought to be able to tell who did it. I've been putting the flag backwards and fixing that railing.
Whoever's trying to get this guy is taking advantage of circumstances. Same as with the umbrella. So if we ask around, all we'll get is conflicting stories and denials from the guilty one. Wait a minute.
Hello?
It's Tisha.
Hello? Yes? What's that? Who did you... Oh, dear.
Tisha, what is that?
Well, I don't know. It's long distance. I don't know who they want to talk to. It's the police, I think, but it must be the wrong number.
George.
No, give me that.
Oh, no.
Give it to me. That calls for me. It's nothing important, really. It's just... Yes? Hello? Oh, yes. Oh, this is he speaking. You did? Oh, I get it. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I guess that winds it up, doesn't it? Well, Tisha, where did you go? Tisha!
So Stevenson is in touch with the police, too, huh?
Angel, I think maybe now we can stop being suckers. That call was for me. Yes, that's right, operator. I was disconnected. Well, hurry it up, will you? Get my party back. Police in the city. Well, hurry it up. I'm sorry, Skinny. We'll have to lock you up. But you'll be all right.
Golly, George, what is it?
I'll tell you later, Angel. Where's Del Hannigan?
I don't know.
Hey, we're too late. That wasn't thunder. Around this way, Brooksy. The place Packler kept his gun.
Yes. Well, the shot must have been here, in the woodshed.
Hold it.
Rick Stevenson.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's dead. Oh. Here comes the rain.
Well, George, whoever killed him must have left here just a second ago. Maybe even was back at the shed when we...
Hey, the screen door. And is back in the house now. Okay, come on, Angel. From here on, it's easy. There's only one person it can be. Hello, Mrs. Packler. Getting dry?
I was out for just a moment. The clothes on the line.
There aren't any clothes on the line.
Please get out of the kitchen. I have to take the cookies out and wrap them for the picnic. And please, they'll get cold if I don't. Let go of me.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Packler, but let's call me a detective.
Oh.
Okay, you'd better sit down. Now, why did you do it?
He found out. Stevenson found out he was coming to get me.
After he talked on the phone. And he came looking in the woodshed, the place where your dead husband's guns were, where the shotgun that killed your husband was.
Stop it. What's the matter? Were you afraid Mr. Stevenson would find that shotgun? Examine it for evidence or something?
I don't know. He was coming to get me, and I had to kill him.
Why, Mrs. Packler?
Well, I was putting his fresh linen away yesterday when I found an envelope. Insurance company. Note about me. Clipping about Tom's death.
Yes, we know.
I'd guessed before he was up to something. So many questions about me, and he wasn't a juryman like he said he was. He spent so much time getting close to poor little Skinny Adams, asking him questions.
Poor little Skinny Adams. That's a strange way for you to talk.
Oh, may the Lord forgive me, but Skinny hasn't much longer to live anyway. I couldn't have killed him but an accident.
Sure like the umbrella or the flag. Because you were afraid he knew something, weren't you?
He did. Under the elm trees. He kept saying it, and I knew sooner or later he'd tell Mr. Stevenson. He'd tell him he'd seen me shooting my husband. Oh, my husband was no good. He was a nag, a loafer. He was no good. No good at all.
Mrs. Packler, I don't know what it was Skinny saw way out under the elms, but it couldn't have been much.
What? What's that?
He brags about retaining his senses. Well, if ever there's a man in this town who'd have learned how to hang the flag, he's the one. But when it was backwards, I had to tell him so. He couldn't see. Don't you understand, Mrs. Packler? He'd been out there dozens of times admiring it, but he couldn't see that far even.
What do you mean?
I mean there was never any real evidence against you concerning your husband. You did commit a perfect crime. Perfect, except for a guilty conscience.
But Mr. Stevenson...
I know. The note that said, Stevenson, Mrs. Packler's got some money, husband dead, suggests you look into it. Well, Rick Stevenson just had a friend at the insurance company, that's all. A friend who tipped him off.
Oh, you're lying. You must be.
No. You didn't need to shoot Rick.
Oh.
Nobody's ever guessed you killed your husband.
George.
Rick Stevenson was exactly what your brother guessed he was. A confidence man, Mrs. Packler. Out after a widow's money.
George, You know, there's one thing I still don't understand.
Oh, what's that, Angel?
Well, I mean, Skinny did see something. The elm trees, he kept saying.
Brooksy, maybe I got that one figured out, too. All poor Skinny wants is for someone to like him, for people to listen. And all day he's been acting as though he had a secret, as though he'd cooked up a surprise. Well, my idea...
Surprise? Surprise? No, Mr. Valentine. I just finally learned something, that's all.
Oh?
You know, people don't like to listen to people unless people tell people what people want to listen to.
Oh, is that so?
Even if you have to make it up.
Oh, great.
Yes, indeed. Now, there was this man I saw once out under some elm trees.
Oh, come on. I don't know that part of it.
Yes, but it's football season, isn't it?
Yes, but who? Who did you see?
Well, miss, that time I saw Newt Rockner standing under the elm.
Here we are with summer already gone, according to the calendar, so maybe it's a good time to take another look at your annual budget. One place you won't want to skimp is in buying protection for your car's engine. In the long run, it would lead to a costly repair bill, especially since it's a proven fact that internal engine rust is responsible for 80% of engine wear. This damage is caused by acid-laden moisture which attacks cylinder walls and other vital parts the moment you cut the ignition. And here's where RPM motor oil comes in with a sure helping hand. Premium quality RPM contains compounds that keep a moisture-proof oil film on all vital parts. With RPM on the job, rust can't get started, even though your car stands idle for days or weeks. So to protect your engine with long-range economy, start using RPM motor oil tomorrow. No wonder it's first choice in the West. It's the oil that stops 80% of engine wear. Ask for RPM at standard stations and at independent Chevron gas stations, where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Next week, as we find George Valentine and Brooksy calling on a new client who has written for help.
Oh, George.
Yeah, Brooksy. The guy writes me a letter and suddenly he's dead.
Oh, golly. You can still get the smell of a gun being fired in here.
Cordite, yeah. That smells like it had been fired just a minute or two ago. Hey, but wait a minute, Brooksy. Take a look at the pistol.
Why, there isn't a shell missing. George, what do we do?
What do we do? All we have to do is find out how a man can be shot dead without a bullet.
Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and Standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George with Francis Robinson as Brooksy. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Also heard in the cast were Ed Begley as Dell, Myra Marsh as Tisha, Howard McNear as Adams, and Fred Shields as Rick. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. What a good, solid episode. I had a lot of twists, and they really kept my mind working overtime trying to guess where this mystery was going to turn. I had my suspicions about the wife early on, but I got turned about in so many directions. So this was a well-crafted mystery, just a really great story, and some very key parts played in this by Brooksy. If it weren't for her being there, the old professor would have died. So nice save indeed. Well, we do have a review off of iTunes. This one comes from KHA11E, says, love the podcast. I found some of these old detective stories when I was driving to work at 3 in the morning 10 years ago and didn't know where to find more once I quit that job. Now I hear the new episodes every day. Thanks, Adam, for the great selection and for insights into the old masters. Well, thanks so much. And I do think that has been a challenge with a lot of the over-the-air distribution of the old-time radio, is they tend to get such awful time slots to be able to broadcast that people don't even have a chance to be exposed to them. So, internet definitely helps a lot with that. I do encourage you, if you do download the show through iTunes, to rate us on iTunes. You don't have to write a review. We've had about 5 people add the ratings and 1 review, so thanks for everybody who's done that. Then also we have a review for the Android app. Matthew says, finally an app that I will use. If you love old detective shows, get this app. Well, thanks so much, Matthew. Much appreciated. And then we have a comment from over on Podcast Alley. I enjoy Let George Do It. Well, we're glad to be able to provide that to you. Great classic show. Well, that'll do it for now. We'll be back tomorrow with Sherlock Holmes. Well, before we do get started, I do want to let you know about Netflix. Netflix brings a world of great entertainment to you. You get access to classic films like Laura, The Thin Man, The Third Man, and so much more. I just actually received the second Thin Man movie after The Thin Man, and I'm going to watch that shortly. There's more than 100,000 DVD titles in Netflix's library, as well as a lot of great instant watch options that are available on 170 million different devices. You can try Netflix out on a free trial. Go to netflix.greatdetectives.net to get started. But let's go ahead and we'll get into today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, The Singular Affair of the White Cockerel.
Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Well, once again, it's time to keep that weekly date with our good friend and host, Dr. Watson. Let's join him, shall we?
Come in, Mr. Bell.
Good evening, Dr. Watson.
Good evening, my boy.
How are you feeling after your Christmas holiday?
Remarkably well, thank you, Mr. Bell, considering how extremely hospitable my friends have been. Just a twinge or two of gout to remind me that an old man should treat tawny port with the respect that it deserves.
I know just what you mean, Dr. Watson.
Draw up your usual chair, my boy, and settle yourself down. That's it.
All ready with tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure, Dr. Watson?
Yes, Mr. Bell. And when I was going over my notes on the case just before you arrived, I came across this white feather. It played a prominent part in tonight's adventure.
A white feather? That signifies cowardice, doesn't it?
Yes, it can, Mr. Bell, it can. But this is a very special feather. It was plucked from a white cockerel, and it helped Sherlock Holmes to foil one of the most diabolical plots that we ever encountered. But first, don't you want to have your usual word with our listeners?
Thank you, Dr. Watson. Men, if you want to stand out in the crowd, remember, well-groomed hair means a lot to a man's appearance. And I'm sure you'll want to know why so many of America's most prosperous and successful men use Kreml hair tonic. You see, Kreml contains a special combination of hair-grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. This is why Kreml gives a man's hair such a natural, well-groomed look. It keeps hair neatly in place longer, too. Yet Kreml never leaves the hair looking or feeling greasy, sticky, or dirty. Just make this test, men. After you apply Kreml, rub your hand over your hair. Notice how delightfully clean your hair feels. Notice how no greasy film comes off on your hand or on your hatband. Kreml always gives your hair such a handsome, clean-cut appearance. At the end of the day, your hair looks just as neatly groomed as when you combed it in the morning. Buy a bottle at any drug counter. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, how about the story of the white cockerel?
Well, Mr. Bell, that adventure took place after Sherlock Holmes had given up his regular practice and retired to his bee farm on the Sussex Downs. I was staying with him there for a few weeks' holiday, and I remember coming down to breakfast one morning to find my old friend, his pipe clenched between his teeth, squatting on a stool, examining the contents of a large metal box at his feet. As he threw back the lid, I could see that the box was half full of papers. Papers tied up with red tape in separate packages. After sorting through them for a few moments, he turned to me and said,
"A box of secrets, my dear Watson. A box of deep, dark secrets."
Are they the records of your early cases, Holmes?
Yes, my boy. These were all done before my biographer had come to glorify me.
I've often wished that I had the notes on them.
So that you might transmute my little adventures into those rather florid stories of yours?
My stories aren't florid. They're factual accounts of what happened.
Oh, don't be hurt, my dear fellow. It's
It's
much too early in the day. Well, Watson, perhaps someday the world will hear of these cases. They're not all successes, but there are some pretty little problems among them.
I'm sure there are.
For example, here's the record of the Tarleton murders. And here's the case of Banbury, the wine merchant.
What happened to him?
He died, Watson, under peculiarly horrible circumstances.
Oh, really?
That case was one of my failures, I'm afraid. Aha! This adventure was really a little recherché. It's a full account of Ricoletti of the clubfoot and his abominable wife.
Yes, I vaguely remember her dreadful woman.
Ghosts from the past, Watson. Ghosts to remind me that my heyday's long past.
Rubbish. I'm quite sure that if a case were to present itself at this moment, you'd be totally unable to resist it.
You're wrong, old chap. Look at this note. It arrived just before you came downstairs. Mr. Manderby, the local squire, apparently needs my help. And yet I assure you I'm not in the least tempted to give it to him.
May I see it?
Certainly. Yeah.
Let's have a look. Dear Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I need your help desperately. Have the goodness to call on me as soon as convenience permits. Continued theft of chickens may appear to be a small matter. Chickens, good gracious me. But I assure you that there are sinister forces at work. Asking you to catch a chicken thief. Well, really, Holmes?
Yes, Watson. Chickens. Something of a come-down, isn't it?
Well, do you know this, Mr. Manderby?
No. But surely his handwriting gives you a clue to his character?
Well, it's legible and regular. A man of business habits, I should say, and of some force of character.
No, Watson.
Oh, sorry?
Look at his long letters. They hardly rise above the common herd. That D might be an A, and the L an E. Men of character always differentiate their long letters, however illegibly they may write. There's vacillation in his K's and self-esteem in his capitals.
That's amazing, Holmes.
It's elementary, my dear Watson, and our long association together should remind you of the fact. I'm afraid you're getting rusty.
Well, perhaps you're getting rusty too, Holmes, and since the sun is shining, and this letter comes from a neighbor of yours, it might be rather interesting to...
Call on Mr. Manderby.
Exactly. I'd like to see if your analysis of his character matches the gentleman himself. In any case, Holmes, he may really be in trouble, you know.
Watson, you're like an old war horse hearing a nearly forgotten bugle.
Yeah, I dare say, Holmes. But even for stolen chickens, it's good to be in harness with you again.
When that wistful tone creeps into your voice, I can't refuse you, Watson. Very well. Let's stroll across the downs and investigate the mystery of Mr. Manderby's chickens.
Mr. Holmes, I'm glad you and your friend came here so promptly.
It would seem to me, Mr. Manderby, that your wisest course would have been to call in the local police.
I did. And the idiot scoffed at me.
Indeed, Mr. Manderby, why?
Well, they said if they had to track down all the chicken thieves in these parts, they'd have no time for their more important duties.
I must admit that I can follow their reasoning, sir.
Well, I can't, since they seem to spend most of their time playing skittles in the Star and Garter. The local sergeant appears to have been selected for his complete lack of grey matter. Doesn't one iota of imagination. He's unable to see in what respect this differs from an ordinary chicken theft.
Well, in what way does it differ, Mr. Vanderbilt?
Well, the chicken coops were broken into with considerable ingenuity. The thief could have taken all he could carry. But he stole only one chicken, a white cockerel.
A white cockerel? When did this take place?
Early last evening. That was when I sent my note to you, Mr. Holmes. But in the early hours of this morning, a burglar broke into the house itself.
And what was stolen this time?
Again, the thief took only one object. My daughter's hairbrush.
Does your daughter know of these thefts?
No, I didn't tell her. The child's full enough of peculiar fancies as it is.
A white cockerel and a hairbrush. Mr. Manderby, I came here against my better judgment, but thank heaven I did. Please let me talk to your daughter at once. Unless I'm very much mistaken, there's devil's work afoot.
Alicia's playing in the drawing room. I'll take you in.
I think, if you don't mind, Mr. Manderby, that we would prefer to see her alone.
Rubbish. What could you possibly wish to say to my daughter that you couldn't say in front of me?
Well, since my friend has been kind enough to help you, sir, I think you'd better let him conduct his investigation in his own manner.
Oh, very, very, very well. All sounds unnecessarily mysterious to me. I'll be in my study.
Dreadfully pompous fellow. You were right in your analysis of his character, Holmes. Well, let's go in.
Shh. Listen to the piano, Watson.
What a weird tune.
Yes. An odd, primitive melody to hear in the heart of the English countryside. Very curious.
Come in. I'm sorry, Father. Oh, it isn't Father. Who are you, gentlemen?
Miss Manderby, permit me to introduce myself. My name is Sherlock Holmes, and this is my friend, Dr. Watson.
How do you do, my dear?
Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I knew you lived in the neighborhood. But why are you here?
At your father's request.
Oh, nothing's wrong, is it, Mr. Holmes?
I'm not sure, Miss Manderby. That's why we've come to talk to you.
Oh, may we sit down, my dear?
Oh, yes, of course. Please forgive me.
Thank you, sir.
You play the piano excellently, Miss Manderby. Have you ever thought of concert work?
Concert work? Oh, no, sir. Papa'd never allow it. He needs me here all the time.
You don't see many people here at the house.
No, Dr. Watson. Papa doesn't like me to cultivate any friends. He wishes me to devote all my attention to him.
Extremely selfish and medieval point of view, it would seem to me.
Oh, please, Mr. Holmes, you mustn't say anything against Papa. If he knew that we were talking about him, he'd be furious.
Then let me confine myself to you, Miss Manderby. Do you know of anyone in this neighborhood who might wish you serious harm?
No, I don't. As I told you, I hardly know anyone.
Then why, my dear young lady, are you so obviously terrified of your own shadow?
Oh, please don't ask me that. I haven't even had the courage to tell Papa.
Possibly not, my dear, but Mr. Holmes is here to help you and to protect you. That's why he insisted on our seeing you alone.
Yes, Miss Manderby. And a trouble shared, you know?
Very well, Mr. Holmes. I will tell you. I've got to tell someone. Last night I had a ghastly dream. I dreamed that I was in some foreign country, in the jungle. I was tied to a stone slab, and a group of natives danced around me, waving knives. And they were all wearing terrifying masks.
Oh, my dear, it sounds like too much lobster for supper.
Quiet, Watson.
Oh, sorry.
Please continue, Miss Manderby.
All the time I could hear a strange, haunting pipe playing in the background. Sounded like some sort of flute, and there was a drum beating out a slow, rhythmic beat.
The same rhythm that you were playing on the piano as we came in?
Why, yes. It's been haunting me ever since I awakened this morning. It goes like this. Holmes, I awakened from the nightmare, but I could still hear the melody continuing. I went to the window, and in the moonlight, I saw a tall man walking below.
Could you recognize him?
No, Mr. Holmes. He was disappearing through the shrubbery, and his back was turned. But his hands were raised to his mouth. And I could hear the same melody being played on some kind of flute. It was awful, awful.
You haven't told your father about it?
No, Dr. Watson. He wouldn't have believed me. Papa's always accusing me of being fanciful. Oh, but I'm not. Really, I'm not.
Miss Manderby, I'm glad that you've told us this, though I suggest that you continue to keep the incident a secret from your father.
Very well, Mr. Holmes.
Come on, Watson.
All right, Holmes. Goodbye, my dear, and courage, Miss Manderby. You have friends now.
Good day, gentlemen. And thank you.
Holmes, what the devil's all this about?
When I can answer that question, Watson, the case will be solved. As it is, there's work to be done.
Ah, there you are, Holmes.
Yes, Mr. Manderby. Here we are.
Yeah, I hope you found out what's wrong with the lassie. She hasn't been herself today.
A change from her normal self, where you are concerned, might be a benefit, sir.
Yes, indeed. The poor girl seems completely terrified of you, sir.
The problem of my daughter's relationship with her father is no possible concern of yours. I asked you here on a simple matter of detection.
Detection, yes, but far from simple. I warn you, you're in serious danger of the loss of a great deal more than a white cockerel and a hairbrush. Be on your guard, Mr. Manderby. Dr. Watson and I must conduct a little investigation in the village. You may expect a call from us later in the day. Well, Watson, here we are at Larches.
Charming house, but I still don't see quite why we're here.
Because my inquiries uncovered the fact that this is the only house in the neighborhood with relatively new tenants. When something extraordinary happens in the peaceful countryside, look first for a newcomer. The owner's name is Mr. George Shapley. Let's see what information the gentleman can give us.
Listen to that, Holmes. Sounds like a flute.
Yes, Watson. And the melody is the same that Miss Manderby played for us on the piano.
And this house is only a stone's throw away from hers.
Precisely.
Yes, gentlemen.
Mr. Shapley?
Yes?
My name is Holmes, and this is my friend, Dr. Watson.
How do you do, sir?
How are you, Doctor? What can I do for you, gentlemen?
I'm something of a student of music. We were walking past your house, and I heard what sounded like a flute playing a strange melody.
It seemed to come from the direction of the stables over there.
Oh, that. It's my manservant, Harker. He's a West Indian. Brought him over with me from Trinidad. He's quite a musician. In an amateur sort of way, you know.
I wonder if I might speak to him.
Of course you can, Mr. Holmes. I'll walk you over there.
Thank you. We were thinking of getting up a little entertainment in the village for the church ladies' bazaar. Perhaps your man would consider contributing his services.
You can ask him. He spends 2 or 3 hours a day out here practicing. Harker!
Yes?
Come here a minute.
Yes, Mr. Hepper.
These gentlemen heard you playing and wondered if you'd like to do something for some village concert or other.
Oh, that's flattering.
We're organizing a musical soiree for the church ladies in a few weeks.
Yes, my man, and we'd like you to play for us.
Oh, I'm only an amateur, but I'll be very glad to help, gentlemen.
That instrument you were playing, it had an odd quality. Was it a flute?
Yes, sir, though I doubt if you've ever seen one like it. Look for yourself.
Good Lord. Looks as if it's made of bone.
It is, sir, from a human leg bone.
Really?
It's about 200 years old and originally came from Brazil. It's quite a collector's item.
I'm sure it is. Tell me, Harker, since you're from the West Indies and obviously a lover of music, I presume you're familiar with some of the primitive melodies indigenous to that part of the world? Some of the tribal chants, for instance?
Oh, yes, sir. I know many of them.
Perhaps you'd play some at the concert.
I'd rather not, sir. Primitive chants are dangerous medicine when their evil powers are not appreciated or understood.
I quite agree with you, Harker. Well, I'm much obliged to you, and we shall count on you for the concert. Good day to you both. Come on, Watson.
Good day.
Good day, Mr. Holmes. Dr. Watson.
That servant's our man, Holmes. He lives within 2 houses of Miss Manderby, and he plays the flute.
Well, Watson, though I don't think the pattern is remotely as clear as you think, I'll agree that suspicion would seem to focus on the servant Harker. I could even produce another clue that points to him.
You could?
I picked this object from his coat as he turned to you during the conversation. None of you noticed it.
What is it?
Look for yourself, Watson. Here.
Great heavens. It's a feather from a white cockerel. Holmes, I thought you said we were going back to Mr. Mandiby's house before the day is over.
We are, Watson.
Why are we back here at your bee farm? It's 8:30 in the evening now.
We shall call on Mr. Mandiby before long. My investigations are complete. What luck did you have with
I
yours?
did as you told me and made exhaustive inquiries in the village.
With what results?
I couldn't find out much about Mr. Shapley. Nobody knows anything about the man except that he has a foreign manservant and that he paid cash for his house and deposited a large sum of money in the local bank. What did you discover? I see that you've been up to your ears in reference books.
Yes, Watson. Books concerning the peculiarly revolting ceremonies connected with voodooism.
Voodooism? That's black magic.
But flourishing in our English countryside, apparently. A white cockerel is the second finest sacrifice in voodoo magic associated with the West Indian chants.
That accounts for the first theft. But how about the stolen hairbrush?
In all such magic, the possession of intensely personal objects, particularly human hair, is considered to give great supernatural powers over that person.
Then it's obvious that West Indian servant is trying to get power over Miss Mandiby. Holmes, you spoke of a white cockerel being the second finest sacrifice. What is the first?
A human sacrifice. The sacrifice of a young girl.
Great Scott.
And tomorrow night the moon is full. I think that tonight the girl should be safe, though of course we'll go over there at once.
Look, Holmes, the lights of a carriage are coming up your driveway.
And it's no social call. It's driving at a gallop. Come on, Watson.
I have nothing that happened to Miss Mandiby already before we get her.
Who is it? What's wrong?
It's Robert Mandiby.
What's happened, Mr. Mandiby?
Alicia, my daughter, she's disappeared. The whole neighborhood's searching for her. For heaven's sake, both of you come at once.
We'll find out in a moment what Sherlock Holmes decides to do now. But first, men, why not start today and take better care of the hair you've got? Remember, one of the first requisites of handsome, healthy-looking hair is a hygienic scalp. So why settle for just any hairdressing when you can enjoy the extra advantages of a highly specialized hair tonic like Kreml? Kreml contains a special combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. This is why it keeps unruly hair neatly in place longer, with a rich, healthy-looking luster. Yet Kreml never gives hair that cheap, greasy, patent leather look. It never leaves hair feeling sticky, gummy, or dirty. Your hair and scalp always look and feel so clean with Kreml. And if your hair is so dry it breaks and falls when you comb it, start using Kreml at once. Let it make your hair feel softer, more pliable, and look as if it had some body to it. Kreml is also fine to lubricate a dry scalp. At the same time, it removes dandruff flakes. A quick massage with Kreml helps stimulate the cutaneous circulation of the scalp. Notice how alive, how invigorated your scalp feels. So for better groomed hair, a hygienic scalp, use Kreml daily. Kreml. Kreml Hair Tonic. Well, Dr. Watson, what happened next? You and the great Sherlock Holmes drove over to Mr. Mandiby's house, I suppose.
Yes, Mr. Bell, as fast as the pony and trap could carry us there. When we arrived, Mandiby quickly led us to the shrubbery beneath his daughter's window.
Yes, you can see how the fiend got into the house, Mr. Holmes.
By climbing this trellis work. Footprints in the earth leading toward it, but none leaving.
And the man, whoever he was, must have left the house by some other exit.
An amazing deduction, Watson.
There's no need to be sarcastic. Holmes, we should go over to Shapley's house at once. It's obvious that that's where the danger lies.
Before saying that anything is obvious, Watson, I'd like your help in trying an experiment.
Yes, of course, Holmes. Well, what is it?
Try climbing that trellis for me, will you?
You give me all the best jobs, don't you? Let me hand, will you, Uncle?
Here you are. Up you go.
You know, Holmes, it seems to me you're wasting valuable time.
Mr. Mandiby, since you asked my help, I suggest you let me handle the case in my own way.
Holmes, I don't think this trellis is going to hold my weight. No. Look out, Holmes! Oh!
Bravo, Watson. Your test has been invaluable.
What do you mean it's been invaluable? I think I've broken my back.
I'm sure you'll survive. Come on, old chap. Get on your feet. We'll go over to Mr. Shapley's house at once. I only hope we're not too late to prevent a tragedy.
There's a light coming from the stables, Holmes.
Music, too. Listen.
It's that West Indian playing his devilish chant again.
Faster, Watson.
Look. There's someone standing in the shadows by the harness room there.
It's Mr. Shapley. Good evening, sir.
Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson, thank heavens you're here.
What's wrong, Mr. Shapley?
Look in that empty store there. You can see through the broken plank in the wall. The one where the music's coming from.
Good heavens. Look, Holmes. There's Miss Manderby lying on the floor unconscious.
Yes, with a dead white cockerel beside her, and a fire smoldering in the corner.
And to think that servant of mine's in there playing his filthy music.
I don't see him.
Mr. Holmes, I've got a revolver. I'm going in to get him.
I think we'll come with you, Mr. Shapley.
No. He's my servant. I'll take care of him myself.
Archie, Watson. Give me that revolver. Give it to me, I say.
What do you think you're doing, Mr. Holmes?
I told you, you're not going to revolver right over his hand.
Pick it up, Watson. I have a profound dislike for seeing murder committed under my very eyes.
Murder? But the potential murderer is Harker, the servant.
Indeed. Then why is his unconscious body lying in the corner there?
It can't be. The music's still playing. That's his flute.
Yes, and it's accompanied by a drum. A remarkable feat even for a man not lying unconscious on the floor. The music is undoubtedly that of a gramophone. You're remarkably quiet, Mr. Harker.
Of course he is. He's unconscious.
My dear Watson, you're overlooking an important fact. It's a case of identity. The West Indian gentleman lying on the floor is the master, Mr. Shapley. This man is the servant, Harker.
Let me...
No, you don't. Grab him, Watson.
I've got him, Holmes.
Let go of me. You can't prove anything.
I can and I will. You'll go to prison for this night's work. Watson, see what may be done to arrive at the houses, while I turn this man over to the police. How is Miss Manderby, Watson?
She's going to be all right, Holmes. I took her home to her father's and left instructions for her care. How are you feeling, Shapley?
Fine, thank you, Dr. Watson. But I'm waiting for Mr. Holmes to explain this night's happenings to me.
So am I, as usual.
Then let me analyze this singular affair in its logical progression. I early concluded that you, Mr. Shapley, were the master, and the other man was the servant.
Right, Mr. Holmes, but I didn't know how you knew it.
Your speech and manner suggested nothing else. You reversed roles, I imagine, because it was an easier way to rent a house in the English countryside.
That was the reason, Mr. Holmes. In my previous visits, I've discerned a certain prejudice against foreigners.
That's a shocking thing, but I wouldn't doubt it, Mr. Shapley. You decided to live here for your health, I suppose?
No, Doctor. I came to the English countryside for peace. Peace to conclude my studies on the origin and history of West Indian native music.
I see.
I've been working in close conjunction with Professor Griffiths of the Brighton College of Anthropology. It was he who concerned me to make graphophone records my works with a view to recording them for musical archives.
And your servant saw his advantage. When you decided to change identities, he realized that if he disposed of you, he would be able to continue in his false character as the supposed Mr. Shapley. He could have taken over your large bank balance and retired under yet a third name with the proceeds.
And then he concocted this elaborate plot involving voodoo and native chants, knowing that his master would be suspect.
Precisely. He drugged his master, placed him in the incriminating trap, and then planned to burst in just ahead of us and shoot him.
But, Holmes, the white feather you found on Mr. Shapley's coat...
Undoubtedly planted there.
Mr. Holmes, I still don't see how you knew that my man was responsible.
The first clue was the trellis. It's obvious that you never climbed that. You're heavier than Dr. Watson, and it wouldn't support his weight. Your servant was a small, light man. Obviously, it was he.
Well, I see it all now. And then, of course, when we heard the music while Mr. Shapley was still lying unconscious, it was obvious that the whole thing was a plot. Oh, what a shocking business.
Yes, but I can't tell you how grateful I am to you, gentlemen. You saved my life. Mr. Holmes, I must insist on paying you a handsome fee.
A fee? No, Mr. Shapley. I couldn't dream of accepting one. Some people in my country have been sufficiently inhospitable to a foreigner to make him believe it advisable to change places with his own servant. Presumably, this was done in order to obtain tolerance and peace. Surely the least I can do is to see that his stay on these shores is a tolerable one.
Girls, I imagine most of you are planning to go out to a party or a dance on New Year's Eve, or perhaps just spend a quiet evening with friends. Naturally, you want your hair to look its best. So why not follow this beauty tip from those divinely beautiful Powers models?
We wash our hair with Kreml shampoo. This amazing beautifying shampoo has been especially developed to actually glamour bathe each tiny strand of hair, revealing all its natural glossy luster.
And so many women tell me how wonderful Kreml shampoo is for washing children's hair.
Well, you can readily see why. Because Kreml shampoo is so mild and gentle on the hair. Its luxurious active foam removes all loose dandruff as well as the dirt.
Girls, if only you could see how Powers model's hair fairly radiates natural glossy highlights, I'm sure you'd want to try Kreml shampoo right away. You can buy a bottle at any drug counter. Kreml, Kreml shampoo. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week?
Well, Mr. Bell, next week I think I'll tell you a story I call the Darlington Substitution Case. It's a strange story of how Holmes saved a prominent British peer from scandal and disgrace by exercising the judgment of Solomon.
Tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Mazarin Stone. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of California Pictures. Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. This is Joseph Bell speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo, and inviting you to be with us next week at this same time, when Dr. Watson will tell us about the Darlington Substitution Case. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Welcome back. Pretty good for a mystery that started out to be just about a missing chicken. Some pretty good twist, I thought, particularly towards the end with who the servant was and who the master was, and the way that was deduced. And a pretty strong message against prejudice in here. I should mention, this is actually the last Sherlock Holmes episode of 1946. So next week's shows are for 1947. Now we turn to listener comments and email. We got another review on the Android app. This one from Jason said, the shows are scattered. No way to sort according to show. Going back to old-time radio free version. Well, I definitely appreciate the concern, and I'd agree that would be a good feature to have to be able to separate the shows out by the type of episode. Unfortunately, it's not a capability of the app. However, I tend to think, and we've had some new people sign up with the app, the two big things about the app, as far as I'm concerned, or three big things, is number one, you can easily contact the show right from your phone. The button there, so you contact us easily. Number two, we've got all the extras that we put up there, generally somewhere between 1 and 4 each month. And then the third thing is the ability to star your favorite episodes. You press the star by your favorite episode, and then anytime you want to be able to listen to it, you just press the star button. And that can be nice to make sure you don't have to, keep it on your computer together or forever or scroll down through it. You can press that star by an episode, and it's going to be there for you whenever you're going to want to listen to it. So thanks so much for the feedback. I hope that clarifies. We have an email from Christine. Says, I'm a listener from Scotland, and I love your show. I'm a huge Sherlock Holmes fan, and I have only listened to those so far, but we'll start in the rest of the shows once these are done. Thanks for the work you put into these shows. I really appreciate it. Well, thanks so much, Christine. I really appreciate it and really want to go to Scotland someday. That, as they say in the 21st century, is on the bucket list. And we close with just a very nice thanks, Adam, off of Podcast Alley from Justin. Well, thanks so much. And appreciate everybody's support. We will be back tomorrow with yours truly, Johnny Dollar, and next week with another episode of Sherlock Holmes. Well, before we get into today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, I do want to ever so briefly let you know about Johnny Dollar Air. Johnny Dollar Air is a great way to save on travel and help support the great detectives of old-time radio. Go to JohnnyDollarAir.com, and it's powered by Priceline, so you can choose from published fares, or you can name your own price on hotels, rental cars, airline tickets, and much more. Plus, a portion of your purchase goes to support the great detectives of old-time radio. So when you are making your travel plans, check out JohnnyDollarAir.com first. Now it's time to get into today's episode, The Stanley Springs Matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
Mr. Dollar, my name is Ed Best. I'm in the investment department of the Financial Surety Company.
Oh, sure, I've worked for the company.
Yes, Bruce Hardwick told me about you. I have something I'd like to have you look into.
What is it?
Briefly, a few years ago, we bought controlling interest in the Stanley Springs Company, an organization in the Southwest that deals in cotton, has a couple of gins. I just got a letter from out there to the effect that behind the scenes, the company is carrying on illegal traffic across the Mexican border.
How close a check do you keep on the outfit?
Our accountant goes out for a quarterly examination, and he certainly reported nothing suspicious, but we businessmen aren't trained to handle smuggling organizations, if one does exist.
Yeah, well, training is very seldom enough, but I'll come down this afternoon and talk it over with you.
Edmund O'Brien in another adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
And as his special guest this evening...
Yours truly, Olga San Juan.
Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office Financial Surety Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Stanley Springs matter. Expense account item 1, $1.75 cab fare from my apartment to Hartford's insurance row and the financial surety offices. Mr. Vest?
Come on in, Mr. Dollar. Happy to meet you. Bruce praised you quite highly.
Oh? I know Bruce well enough to suspect he was selling me so he wouldn't have to take the trip himself.
I doubt that. But be that as it may. Sit down.
Thank you.
Here's the letter I mentioned to you. Very brief.
Unsigned. He's not generous with details, is he?
No, nothing but a bald accusation. What did he call it? Illegal shipment?
Yeah.
What do you make of it?
I don't know. Stanley Springs Stationery. Must be an employee. Maybe a crank.
Yes, that had occurred to us.
You have no reason to think that what he says is true, is that right?
Good Lord, no. We'd had the faintest suspicions. We would have investigated them.
Don't you think it'd be a good idea to turn the matter over to the federal people?
After discussing it, we decided that it wouldn't be a good idea. At this time, there's not enough. Perhaps there's nothing behind the letter. We decided to carry out our own investigation first. And then, if there's basis, we'll turn to the federal agency.
That was about it from the Hartford end. My only instruction was to keep secret, if possible, my identity and the investigation. Expense account item 2, $135 transportation. First by air, then by train, then by bus to Stanley Springs. I arrived there late in the afternoon, and at first I couldn't see the true character of the town. It was dusty, set in a depression of the desert that's called Stanley Springs Valley. It was a company-built town. 2 dirty street saloons, a few cafes, and stores made up the center of town. The rest was a cluster of identical white dwellings. There was only one small hotel, and I checked into it under the curious glance of a dark-haired girl who knocked on the door a few minutes after I'd gotten to my room. Hello.
Hello. Are you busy?
I know, not at the moment.
Then could I come in?
Sure, I don't see why not. I'm not quite ready to receive visitors. I don't have anything to offer you but a cigarette.
I don't want anything. I only wanted to talk to you. My name is Anne, and I live here in the hotel. We don't see many strangers here in Stanley Springs.
Well, I'm that all right. Sit down.
Why are you here?
Taking a look at a lot of organizations like the Stanley Springs Company. I'm going to write an article for a textiles magazine.
You are from the East?
Yeah, New York. You?
I lived in Denver before I came here. And I have been in Fort Worth, and Tucson, and Phoenix. Why do you want to write about the company?
Well, I'm being paid to by a lot of men who own controlling interest in a lot of companies, and they're too fat and wealthy to come out themselves to find out how they earn their money.
You don't like these men?
I can take them or leave them alone. What do you do?
I work in one of the clubs.
Clubs? Isn't that a pretty fancy name for them?
I know. They don't look like much in the daytime. But at night, you'll see.
Does the company own these clubs?
I think they sold them. That was before I came here.
I take it I can drop my money on a crap table if I want to.
Oh, yes, there are games in all of them. Oh, but you aren't interested in that. And I'm talking too much. Do you want me to go?
No, of course not. I'm glad you came.
Then so am I. It's good to have someone new to talk to.
She stayed about an hour, long enough for me to learn, among other things, that her name was Anne Saliva and that she sang. It seemed to me then that she, as well as I, was leaving things unsaid, and I wondered if her warm, friendly, and seemingly honest approach wouldn't be a good method of learning why any stranger dropped into Stanley Springs. I didn't do anything that first evening and night but recover from my long 15 hours of travel. The next morning, I started out on the only lead I had, the unsigned two-sentence note on company stationery. There were 3 men in the Stanley Springs office when I got there. One of them was Norman Stager, the manager.
Well, that's interesting, Mr. Dollar. What sections have you been through in your survey?
I came up through the southeastern states, then through Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona, California, now here.
Quite an extensive trip.
They seem to think it's worth it.
You will find us about the same as the rest of the ginning concerns, except the ones that handle American upland cotton. They use saw gins. We use roller gins. You'll find nothing new here.
I won't bother you, Mr. Stager. I'd like to talk to your personnel, go through your warehouses. Could I meet the men here in the office?
Yes, you can meet them, but I'd rather you didn't talk to them until after we close tonight. We've got a lot of work this week.
Oh, sure, anything you say.
Come on. Phillips.
Yes?
Meet Mr. Dollar. Came out from the east to look over our plant.
How do you do?
Phillips?
Phillips is our chief clerk. Mr. Dollar is going to write a magazine article.
Oh, I see.
I want you to help him with any information he wants, Phillips, but not until after hours.
All right.
Phillips is through at 5. You can meet him then.
Fine, I'll see you, Mr. Phillips.
Yes, at 5.
This is Childs over here. He's our shipping clerk. Mr. Dollar, Childs.
Hello, Mr. Childs.
Howdy. You gonna write us up, huh?
Well, I'll try not to get in the way.
Say, you've got a shipment going out this morning, haven't you, Childs?
Yeah.
Maybe Mr. Dollar can go out and watch the bales being loaded. That won't slow things down.
Oh, sure. I'm going out now.
Good. You can get an idea of the size of our shipments. We send one about like this every other week.
Like with the girl, there was nothing there in the office that I could put my finger on. Only things to wonder about. Like the quick look Phillips, the clerk, threw at me when I was introduced, and something about the tone Stager used with him. I went through the formalities of watching the loading operation and noting the number of bales, and then returned to Stager's office for my meeting with Phillips.
Oh. How are you making out?
All right, Mr. Stager. Phillips here?
No, he isn't. He was feeling sick this afternoon. Let him go home at about 2:30.
Oh? What's the matter with him?
I don't know. Something with his stomach. I think he worries too much.
Doesn't seem like he'd have very much to worry about in his job.
No, he wouldn't, but I guess it can be quite a strain if you let it. For me, I don't worry about anything.
Well, that's the way to be, all right. I'll find him at home then, I guess, or if he doesn't feel good, I can wait till tomorrow.
You'd better catch him. Maybe he's sicker than he thinks.
What do you mean?
Just what I said. Maybe he's in worse shape than he realizes.
I hope not. Why do you say that, Mr. Stager?
Well, it just seemed to me that he acted kind of funny when I introduced you to him this morning. Didn't you notice?
No, I guess I didn't.
I've had my doubts about him for quite a while. I think there's something wrong with him.
Like what?
Something about his past that he's hiding. I've even thought he may have had a criminal record. When he met you, it was almost like he was afraid you'd come out here after him.
It'd be easy enough to check if you wanted to. We could phone the state authorities.
Oh, not yet, Dollar. Let's wait till after you talk to him. Find out how he reacts. He lives in number 18. That's on 1st Street.
Okay, Steger, thanks. I'll go right over.
I would. Let me know how you find out.
I was almost positive then who'd written the note, and that there was something behind it. I banged on the door of number 18 for a reasonable length of time and then forced my way in. Phillips wasn't there, and according to some unwashed dishes, hadn't been there since breakfast. I found only one thing that pointed someplace, a photograph of the girl, Ann Salava. I didn't find her at the hotel when I got back, so at 8 that night I walked into the club where she worked. She was singing as I entered.
Saber esperar y callar, para al cabo arrancar lo que siempre anhela el corazón. No te importe saber que mi boca besar una boca otra vez, pues no hay huellas que existen, recuerdos que no borres tú. Tu cariño me ha traído un algo, no sé qué, que no deja que mis ojos miren más que hacia ti.
Ann? Ann?
Johnny! Oh, I'm glad you came. You didn't last
I want
night.
to talk with you, Ann. Is there any place we can go?
What's the matter?
I want to talk to you about Irving Phillips.
Why?
I had an appointment with him at 5. I can't find him. Where can we talk?
I don't want to talk to you.
Why not?
Please leave me alone.
You know where Phillips is?
No,
Why don't you want to talk about him?
I don't know.
Because he wrote a letter?
I'll try to come to your room after I finish. Don't talk to me here. It will be about 4.
All right. I'll wait for you. You did come. I wondered if you would.
Who are you?
I think both of us would have been better off if there hadn't been any deception. You came to my room yesterday because you were expecting somebody to show up from the east. Isn't that right?
Who are you really, Johnny?
Well, who did Phillips write the letter to?
You were sent here by the owners of the company?
Yes, that's right.
The letter got there then. We didn't know if it had been mailed.
It got there.
They were following Irving, and he was sure they saw him give the letter to the man. They asked him about it, and he told them he hadn't.
He gave it to somebody else because he couldn't mail it himself?
They were following him.
And this stuff about traffic across the border is true, huh?
Yes.
Why did Phillips write the letter?
He wanted to leave Stanley Springs, but they wouldn't let him.
Because he knew about the smuggling.
Yes. He didn't have anything to do with it, and he didn't try to find out about it. But he learned about it, and they knew it. So they couldn't let him leave.
Yeah. How much do you know about it, Ann?
It's narcotics. A cotton grower right in the border brings it up.
Doesn't that put you on about the same spot as Phillips?
They won't let me leave. Irving wrote the letter because the only thing we could do was to tell somebody else about it. And now you know.
We'll do something about it.
What, Johnny?
I'm going to get word out. I'm going to call the nearest Treasury Department office.
Oh, no, Johnny. This is Stanley Springs. The company owns everything, and Steger has thought of everything. There's only one telephone in town. That's in the company office.
Well, I'll have to use that one, I guess. You go back to your room. I'll get word out some way.
was pretty obvious that I wasn't going to get word out. It was 4:30 in the morning when I left the hotel, but two men were waiting for me in the street.
Hey, Dollar!
Huh? Oh, it's you, Childs.
You up early or late?
I could ask the same thing of you.
You get a lot of information from Phillips for that article you're writing?
I think you know more about Phillips than I do.
Well, the way he acted when he met you, I thought he was afraid of you. I wondered if you'd seen him.
What are you driving at, Childs? I didn't see him. I went to his house. He wasn't there.
He wasn't? Well, that's funny. I saw him go in about 8:30 and 9 last night.
Maybe I ought to try again.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, you can't start too early in Stanley Springs.
Thanks for the tip. I'll go right over. I figured it for a cat and mouse game. They wanted me to find Phillips, and I did. Phillips was dead from a bullet wound in his temple. The .38 revolver was still held in his right hand. Except for one completely worthless bit of evidence. Irving Phillips' death was apparently a result of suicide.
We will return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. There have been some changes made, and it's faster, it's funnier, it's got new life and a brand new punch because Jan Murray's taken over. What show is this? Why, CBS's Saturday night musical quiz, Sing It Again. That hour of melody, mirth, and money that's heard on most of these same CBS stations. Yes, Jan Murray is your new host. Alan Dale, Judy Lynn, the Riddlers, and Ray Block are your music makers. And there are still loads and loads of cash for identifying the phantom voice. Be sure to hear the new Sing It Again, starring Jan Murray, tonight on CBS. Now, with our star Edmund O'Brien, we return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
A brief and faltering examination of the scene was made about an hour later by an aged deputy sheriff, Stanley Springs' only law enforcement officer. He didn't ask for a statement. I didn't offer one because I knew it would be useless. I watched the removal of Phillips' body, and then with Childs and the other man following me, I went back to the hotel. Johnny, I have to see you.
Oh, I was asleep. I didn't think I could sleep.
I don't know what he meant to you, but I don't have time to pull any punches. Phillips is dead.
I thought he would be.
Because they didn't want him to talk to me. Here's the key to my room. I want you to get out of this one. Stay in mine. Don't answer if anybody knocks. Don't say anything.
All right, Johnny. What about you?
I'll be all right. I'll get back to you as fast as I can. With the two men still tailing me, I found an early cafe and spent some time over coffee. I knew what their mission was, but to check it, I started toward the bus station at a little after 7:30. When I got within a block of it, they started to close in, and they were ready to jump me when I reached the point directly across the street from it. It looked like I was in Stanley Springs to stay. At 8:15, I walked into the company office again.
Good morning, Dollar. I was hoping you'd come in. I wanted to talk to you.
About what?
Why, about Phillips, of course. I told you I wondered about his past. What's behind his suicide anyway, do you know?
I know it wasn't suicide, Steger, if that'll help you.
Well, of course it was. The gun was found in the man's hand, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he still smelled of chloroform when I saw him.
Chloroform? It wasn't mentioned to me.
Well, I wouldn't worry about it if I were you. I understand the traces disappear in a short time. But let's understand each other. You and I know that he was chloroformed, that when he was unconscious, a gun was put in his hand, that it was pointed at his head, and somebody helped him pull the trigger.
You saw this happen?
It happened. But the tests will prove that his hand fired the gun. You and probably a couple of your men know he was murdered, and I know it. As far as proof goes, you're safe.
For a textile writer, you seem to know quite a bit about these things.
I think we understand each other now, Steger.
I hope you do.
I know you've been sitting on a good thing probably for a long time. The whole town has been a front for you. You control everything. But trying to control me is a different proposition.
I guess I didn't realize that.
Your men have made it clear that they won't let me leave town.
Things will change.
You're right, they will. The people who sent me out here suspect you're dealing in contraband. What do you think they'll do? Forget it if they don't hear from me according to plan?
You can worry about that, Dollar. I'm not going to. I don't know what you're talking about. You made a lot of empty accusations. The only reason I can think of is that you're a stupid, stumbling bum.
Well, if it's that way, I guess you won't mind my using your phone.
Get away from it. Giles! Put it down. Stop it, Giles! Move, Clancy!
Put it down, Dollar. Yeah, behind it, Clancy. Now, let me have him. Hey, come on, get up, Dollar.
Get away.
Come on, get up.
Let go.
Yeah, sure, I'll let go.
That's enough, Giles.
Empty accusations, Steger?
The company rule. Nobody uses that phone but employees. Now, get out of here and get yourself cleaned up.
Conceit of the man that's worst of all, Anne. He's been toying with me ever since I got here, leading me around, showing me the murder he committed because he knows he'll get away with it.
Oh, please sit down, Johnny, so I can put something on your face.
I know what he's doing, and I can't stop him.
I think this will hurt. This is very bad.
Sorry. He's going to hold me here until he gets rid of the narcotics evidence. And then there won't be a thing I can prove against him.
Oh, wait, Johnny. Your forehead.
Ooh.
Oh, I'm sorry. Does it hurt?
Yeah, that one does.
There's only this one more. There. You aren't very pretty now, Johnny.
Come here.
Yes.
How can you be so calm about this? Aren't you afraid of them?
I have been afraid of a lot of things.
What things?
I don't want to talk about them, Johnny. I have made my life the way it is. I didn't have to come to Stanley Springs.
Okay, we'll leave it at that.
Why do you want to know about me?
It's been less than 24 hours, but it seems like I've known you for a long time.
I know.
I guess meeting like this in trouble does that sort of thing to people.
I have heard that life goes very fast when there is danger. Oh, you haven't slept and you should. Do you want me to go?
No. I don't want you to go, not for a while.
All right, Johnny.
I've been trying to think what this day would have been without you.
If I've helped you, I'm glad.
Only a few times in my life when I've been driven to the point where I could kill a man. I reached it today when Steger and his men kicked me out of that office. I think if you hadn't been here, I would have gone back to it.
Oh, I think it would be better if you forgot all about that.
Forgot it? I'm afraid that's a luxury that's not allowed me. I'm not paid to forget.
Even for a little while? I'll only stay for a little while. You haven't slept and you should. But tell me about yourself. Where you live. I've wondered so many things about you.
That was the last time I saw Anne Salivar. She stayed an hour, maybe less. When she'd gone, I slept. There hadn't been any secrets left between Norman Steger and me after our last meeting. I'd told him what I knew, and he told me how he felt. Because of that, I thought Anne Salivar was no longer in danger as a giver of information. That's why I let her leave. But after I'd rested, I went to her room, and she wasn't there. The desk clerk told me that she left with 2 men, and his description came close enough to fitting Childs and the other man who'd been following me. This time, when I started for the Stanley Springs office, I was carrying an automatic.
Well, Mr. Dollar, I thought you'd had enough out of this office.
That's just why I came back. Where is she?
Who?
Look, the time for tossing words around is gone, Childs. Where is she?
You know, that gun don't make you mayor of this town. If you use it, you'll be cut down before you can move 100 yards.
I won't have to use it if you tell me where she is.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Where's Steger?
He's out.
Where?
I don't know.
Where, Childs?
I don't know.
You took her out of the hotel. The clerk told me that. Where'd you take her? What did you do with her?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Understand this, Childs. I'll kill you if I have to. Now, where is she?
I don't know.
Where is Steger?
He's out in the warehouse.
Which one?
Number 3.
Take me out there.
No, I won't. No, wait!
Now, take me out there. Take me out there or I'll kill you. I mean that.
All right, I'll take you out there.
Where, Childs?
He said he was coming here.
Don't play with me. Don't tell me anything but the truth.
I'm not. He said he was coming here. Steger!
That you, child?
Yeah.
What do you want?
It's Dollar.
Where is he?
I'm here, Steger.
Haven't you gotten yourself into enough trouble, Dollar?
Yeah, plenty.
What's the matter with you, Charles?
He hit me with a gun.
You're liable to find yourself in prison, Dollar. Do you know that?
I've thought about it.
Armed assault? That's a felony, I believe.
I want to know where Aunt Salivar is.
I didn't know you were acquainted.
Yes, you did. Tell me what you did with her.
I didn't do anything with her.
Where is she?
I don't know. This is another example of these halfway accusations of yours with no proof. You can't find her. It's quite possible that she left town.
You wouldn't let her do that.
You don't know what you're talking about. And I've heard enough. I think you've lost your mind.
Steger, don't. Don't leave. I'll kill you if I have to.
No, you won't, Dollar. Because you don't have proof of anything. Well?
What? Oh, you killed him. What's the matter? You crazy? You killed Steger.
No, I didn't. But you might not be so lucky. So don't do anything I don't tell you to do.
No, I won't. I won't do nothing. What do you want from me?
Take me to that deputy sheriff. I want to be arrested. Expense account item 3, $100 retainer for a lawyer in Farmington, the county seat. Ann Salivar was found in the building where she was being held, and she was released. The rest of it is up to the Treasury men who moved into Stanley Springs after I gave them my statement. Remarks? I won't total this account at the moment as I'm mailing it from the county jail, where I'm being held on the charge of assault with intent to kill. The word is that I'll be freed on the grounds that my assault was justifiable, since it was the only way to stop a man of Norman Steger's power. So I hope to see you soon. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien's special guest this evening was Olga San Juan. Featured in tonight's cast were Ray Hartman, Bill Conrad, and Herb Butterfield. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dick Cutting inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Since the fighting began in Korea, prices have been mounting throughout the country. The cost of living today is at an all-time high, and under pressure will rise still higher. We can protect ourselves, our families, and our country against dangerous inflation if each of us will resolve to pay no more than fair prices, to watch for repeated price rises, to buy only what we need, and to refrain from hoarding at the expense of our neighbors and our country. Fight inflation by following those simple rules. Stay tuned now for Von Monroe's Caravan, which follows immediately over most of these same CBS stations. This is CBS, where you laugh at Jack Benny every Sunday night, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
welcome back. Well, there's one question I wondered about after this episode. Who was Olga San Juan? Well, Olga San Juan was actually a pretty prominent actress in the 1940s with a wide variety of different roles. However, one of her big reasons for appearing in this show was she was also, at the time, Mrs. Edmund O'Brien, and would still be that until 1976. Once again, O'Brien, as Johnny Dollar pulls the trigger. I had little doubt that he was going to. He's already shown that he was capable of doing it in the Yankee Pride matter. I didn't like this one as much in terms of the action and plot. The big thing that bothered me in this episode is that it would have basically been over when he went to the office the first time had he simply brought his gun. And he had every reason to believe that the boss was behind it. But it may have been that he would not have been willing to pull the trigger in that case. It was just a matter of covering up the narcotics. So perhaps I see a little bit where they're coming from. Still, it's a big flaw why he would expect the guy seriously to let him use the phone. Or what exactly he thought he was going to establish by him not using the phone. Anyway, we do move on. We have some emails and other comments. We have this from Dave V. in Albany. Said, I've listened to all the archive shows now, so I have to wait for the new ones. As I wrote before, they are great company when working alone and mumbling to myself. Thanks so much, David. He also includes a note. I saw this news blurb, and I'm sure you've heard by now. I only hope there are some of the long-lost shows we all would like to hear. Keep up the super work, and many thanks. From Dave in Albany. Well, thanks so much, Dave. And the story he's actually referring to, I mentioned over on our Facebook page at facebook.com/radiodetectives. However, this story actually comes from an Air Force base where 8,000 AFRS, Armed Forces Radio Service transcriptions have been located. It's a huge find. Some of this may be lost shows. A lot of what the Armed Forces Radio Service played was stuff that came from overseas. We've listened to quite a bit of Armed Forces Radio Service programming, the type of stuff they played overseas. A lot of the Thin Man episodes, and all the Abbott episodes we have come from the successor, the Armed Forces Radio and Television Service. I think anytime you have this sort of big find, the concern is that it be available for the American people to enjoy and listen to, and I would say everybody else. It'll be interesting to see what begins to become available. It would, pretty much be guesswork, trying to figure out what's in there without some sort of a catalog. I imagine there's quite a bit of music. There were a wide variety of different music programs, particularly in the 40s. G.I. Jive. But we'll see. Maybe that it'll lead to a few more great detective shows being available as well. Thanks so much. Comment from Joe. I listen to Johnny Dollar all the time. I have 50 or 60 episodes on DVD disc that I burned. Definitely a convenient way to keep track of them. On DVD, you can fit hundreds of episodes of any show practically on there. And then we have these two comments on Podcast Alley. Jody says, I listen every day and enjoy Adam's insights and comments about the shows. The show has become my one must-have. And then a nice keep up the good work. Well, thank you so much for all your kind comments, and we appreciate all your support. We will be back next week with another episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. And be sure to be listening to the app or our premium site. We're going to have some fun there, some St. Patrick's Day fun. You won't want to miss it. I'll let you know about it next week. In the meantime, though, send your comments to box13@greatdetectives.net and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/radiodetectives. But from Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.